A controlled explosion at Buckingham Palace after a man's arrested for throwing shotgun cartridges at the gates.
Good morning. We are live from Buckingham Palace at 6 o'clock and it's Wednesday the 3rd of May. Welcome to Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Yeah, here we are the morning after the night before, leading the news this morning. Buckingham Palace was put into lockdown last night after a man threw shotgun cartridges into the grounds. The palace has confirmed neither the King or the Queen Consort were there during the incident.
Cold calling is to be banned under new government plans to tackle scams. The Prime Minister says the strategy, which also includes the creation of a new national fraud squad, will take the fight to the fraudsters.
More than 1 million NHS staff will see a 5% wage increase after multiple health unions voted to accept the government's deal. However, Unite and the Royal College of Nursing rejected the offer, prompting fears of further walkouts.
And the former Partygate investigator, Sue Gray, is said to be refusing to cooperate with an investigation into her talks with the Labour Party. The Cabinet Office inquiry has now been paused while the Deputy Prime Minister considers next steps. And Donald Trump is speaking exclusively to GBNews this evening when he sits down with Nigel Farage. The former president will give his take on issues including the coronation, the state of Scottish politics and his political future. So we want to hear from you this morning. Do let us know where you're watching or listening from and send those thoughts to GBNews at GBNews.
I'll tell you what my thoughts are.
Yes,
right.
please.
Fraudsters, the police say scam calls. When
yes.
people phone you, they're going to clamp down, they're going to ban these calls when fraudsters phone you. How on earth do they know where they're from? Will they do anything about it? When someone says, hello, can I have your life savings? And you say, yeah, we'll do that. How do they stop that? And then, you see, this is another thing that I think is just headline grabbing and all talk. What can they actually do about it?
Well, there is a local election tomorrow. That must be one of the reasons.
But we want somebody to explain that to us today.
Yes.
How they actually, talk is cheap. Unlike scams, which are very expensive.
Well, we have Tom Tugendhat just after 9 o'clock. He's from the Cabinet and we'll be speaking to him about that as well as the rest of the day.
Okay, what else was getting on my nerves? Sue Gray. Sue Gray, right, so she investigates. Okay, I don't care, I'm not one way for or against, but she's held up as a paragon of virtue. Purer than pure, whiter than the driven snow. And yet, there's an investigation into her. What does she say? No, count me out. I'm not going to cooperate with that. How does she get away with that?
Yeah, well, she knows how to do an inquiry or not to, doesn't she?
Well, the thing is that it makes the inquiry that she's done surely null and void, surely hypocritical, surely farcical, surely a lot of nonsense. It's what I say about this country. All talk, no action, a lot of people just spouting talk. It's just talk. And it doesn't mean anything. Fraudsters.
No, well, someone's got to try.
Scammers.
Listen, do you agree? Let us know. What do you think about what Eamonn's had to say this morning? Give us your thoughts, as I say, GBNews at gbnews.uk.
Yeah, Sue Gray, she investigates the Conservative Party. Fine, they needed investigating. Boris Johnson needed investigating, not against that. But then she's investigated because she allegedly has had talks with the Labour Party while she's a civil servant into a partisan report into the Conservative Party. But she says, oh no, don't talk to me about that. I'm not free for that.
Well, yes.
Yeah. It's like you. Every time I question you about something, it's like, oh no, there's always a different answer.
Oh, you're attacking me now?
It's just a different
1 minute
answer.
past 6 and we're off.
And we're off. We are off.
Sure. OK, our top story this morning. A man's been arrested after throwing a suspected shotgun cartridge at the gates of Buckingham Palace.
Well, this whole area behind us here was locked down and there was a precautionary controlled explosion carried out, and the knock-on effect this morning is that security is even tighter.
Very tight this morning.
Yeah, around all of this. So the noise of these shotgun or this controlled explosion was heard live on this very station last night. Have a look.
We're just getting the latest word from the Metropolitan Police, and I don't know what it is.
Evacuate now.
We're going to have to evacuate now.
The police are live with us now and are telling us that we've got to evacuate even
I don't see why we could possibly have to move.
So I'm very sorry to say that it is good evening for me for the time being, as I think that was probably a controlled explosion in the background. That's what it sounded like to me.
I mean, extraordinary scenes, to be honest, and
It's
very
all happening.
composed by Jacob Rees-Mogg with an explosion behind him, carrying on. The show must go on. But Buckingham Palace has confirmed that neither the King nor the Queen Consort were at the palace, luckily, when the incident took place.
The palace looks absolutely beautiful this morning, bathed in a sort of pink light,
Yes,
sort
pinky sunrise.
of pinky peachy sort of glow this morning. So hiding what went on last night, because obviously there are nutcases everywhere ready to disrupt everything that is going on. We want to take on former head of national counter-terrorism in the country, and that is Chris Phillips this morning. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Good morning, Em.
Chris, you just look at situations like last night and you think, what is the motivation? Why can they be bothered? How credible was the attack? What's your take on things?
Well, all very dramatic, particularly as it came out live on GBNews. But of course, it was stuff and nonsense, really. This was a member of a mad, bad and sad community walking around London with some shotgun cartridges, which aren't actually even illegal to hold. The issue is, I think, that the police are at heightened alert. You are going to get a quick response to anything that happens in that area. And this was dealt with very quickly and effectively.
Funny old thing, shotgun cartridges, but the police weren't to know, I suppose, what was in the containers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they're not going to take any chances with it. The fact that it was blown up was simply just to make sure that there was no proper detonated device inside them. But, you know, you can expect lots and lots of police officers there, and that will gradually build up as the week goes on. And, of course, police will respond. And the fact that this guy was carrying a knife does cause some cause for concern. But, of course, there are so many people out there, Eamonn, that want to get on the telly, that want to get themselves famous, that want to do something stupid, that would just love to mess up this whole week.
Also, Chris, I was speaking to some security on the way in. As Eamonn mentioned, even tighter. It was extremely tight yesterday, but it took quite a while for both of us to get in to the site. But I was speaking to security earlier. He said with all the road closures, there are a few people, perhaps with mental health issues, who've been moved along from where perhaps they might be rough sleeping and the like. And that is also causing problems, that because everybody's being treated with such suspicion, people are sort of a little bit on edge at the moment.
Yeah, quite natural, really, but you're absolutely right. And this will just gradually ramp up as the week goes on to the big day, of course. And on the big day, there'll be plenty of people out there that would love to disrupt the coronation. And that's what the police are really going to work hard to try to stop.
The crowds that are gathering, part of the problem, but they could also be part of the solution, surely, as well, being eyes and ears.
Yeah, quite right. And most often, the crowd of the people that identify someone that is acting suspiciously, unusually, and of course there will be plainclothes police officers in amongst the crowds as well to pick up people that are acting unusually. Let's put it that way, where they're not necessarily looking at the things that everyone else is looking at, in order to stop them and before they even get to the point of trying to disrupt.
And there's also all this concern, isn't there, about protesters and disruptive antics from some of them. There were concerns that things like rape alarms might be thrown at horses during the processions. And we hear in the papers this morning, I think it's The Guardian, they've been sent a letter from Republic, the anti-monarchy group, who say that they've been informed that new, tougher laws have been rushed through to try and clamp down on protesters.
Yeah, well, whether they've been rushed through or not, they are required, because we've seen protesters able to hold up the country for their own single issue that they see as the most important thing that there is out there, and everyone else doesn't. So there has obviously these legislations been brought through. It sounds sensible to me that you'd let the people know that are likely to be sentenced to prison that this is now a criminal offence. But there you go. That's The Guardian for you.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Appreciate that.
you.
What a job the security forces have, actually.
Someone will be having sleepless nights, or they won't be going to sleep, will they, for a few days?
Yeah.
I wonder if the King gets anxious. You know, there's a lot of pressure, not only the build-up to the big day, you know, having waited your whole life for it, but also all this kind of fear of the protesters and perhaps some of these lone wolf factors. It must be.
Well, I think if you're going
nerve-wracking.
along, you have a role to play in all of this.
Yeah.
There are just people who want to disrupt, and there are people who want to cause harm. Kinsey Schofield wants to just
Spread the love.
goodness and
Yeah,
love
the antithesis
all around
of that.
the place today. Royal reporter from LA, here in London now, live. Very nice to see you again. Beautiful morning, isn't it?
It is, and I'm so happy to be here with you two.
Thank you. Listen, lots to talk about. First of all, Princess Anne doing the rounds yesterday on Canadian Interview. Very understated sort of approach from her, and sort of what we expect from her. But she was saying that she didn't really think that a slimmed-down monarchy was a good idea.
Right, and I was kind of surprised by that because, you know, her own children are kind of lay low and are so they're such great representatives of the royal family. You know what else she said that I thought was brilliant was, you know what you're getting with King Charles, and that's a fact. We've had so many years to get to know him, what he's passionate about. You're talking about these protesters. Half the things they're protesting are things he's passionate about. So it's wild that you're going to see these people come out and try to create this chaos when he's been like at the forefront of environmentalism and all of these creative initiatives throughout his life and his youth. I mean, I think he would have taken to the streets if he could have when he was younger, because he's always just been unique like that. But yeah, we were talking before we were live, and how do you not describe Princess Anne is just cool, calm, collected, and she is just, I think, a great representation of her mother.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't disagree with
Well, she's
that.
got a great sense of humour as well. I mean, we can get a headline out of her interview on Canadian television yesterday, but when you actually look at the footage, she's very self-deprecating. Well, it doesn't look good from my point of view, where I am, meaning, you know, that we're talking her out of a job, or we're taking a job away from her if we're slimming down the monarchy. So, I mean, I think you've got to credit people for doing that and reflect the fact that she was joking.
Oh, absolutely. And I just think that this is a unique opportunity to hear from her. I doubt that that's the headline she wanted from it. But when somebody's poking you and poking you and poking you in one of those sit-downs, they're going to get something inevitably.
Yeah, she did very well, actually, not to bite at some of the other comments about popularity of her brother and all the rest of it. She as you say, very understated, very cool. There's a poll in the Daily Mail today talking about the realms, the royal realms that the king will be presiding over, and more than 50% of those now describing themselves as Republican. That will be disappointing, don't you think, for the king this morning?
I do. I think that he's probably not happy with those, but I feel like there are new poll numbers coming out every day. And as we've discussed in the past, the older people get, the more they tend to appreciate the monarchy, and they've not even given him a chance. Just give him a chance. See what he's capable of doing. And I do think that there is enthusiasm for William and Catherine. So just give us a minute, okay? Yeah. Inevitably, everybody's going to love William and Catherine when they take the throne.
For sure.
I think on that very point, if there was a way Charles could do 5 years or something, and then have William and Catherine accede to the throne, I think there would be a lot of support for that, because
Abdication, though.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Charles missed the flush of his youth to be king. William will probably do the same. His dad will probably live to William's 60 or whatever. And you think now is the time for William and Kate to be new, trendy young monarchs, not 30 years
I was
time.
reading yesterday that the king is officially the oldest monarch to become a new monarch in the British history.
It's
which is quite
wild.
something.
It's wild, and I completely agree with you. I imagine that there are nerves. You've waited for this your entire life. Polls are coming out every day that are it makes you question your popularity. It makes you question your likability, and that does have to eat at you. I don't care how strong you are as a person, and he is a sensitive and soft man, and that's part of the reason why I admire him. He was bullied all throughout school. He never fought back. He always just kept, he stayed so focused on the objective. And I really admire that in him, and I think that this is probably a difficult time for him. And that is when I do appreciate the fact that Camilla is there to support him, because I know she is so important in, that aspect.
What about the way this is viewed from your part of the world in the United States? Every country has to have something different, something that marks it out, something that gives it an attraction. You, your president, your White House, and various things like that. Here, I think this country would be a lot duller without a royal family, whether you agree with it or not.
Oh, absolutely. I do think we envy your royal family because that is something that everybody can rally around. It's fun, it's glamorous, it's beautiful. There were rehearsals overnight. You can search Twitter, all the pictures of people that got up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning.
What was going on?
They rehearsed some of the, I actually think the entire parade, procession to Westminster Abbey. You saw the coach, you saw everybody in sync and the uniforms, and nobody does it like you. There is no question that you own this.
We invented it.
You own it.
No, I can't disagree. We were treated to seeing some of the rehearsals yesterday as well, and it does really set the scene for what's going to be a really special weekend. Thank you very much now, Kinsey Schofield.
Kinsey will be back later in the programme. The time now, 16 minutes past 6.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. And NHS nurses in England are threatening to return to the picket line despite ministers agreeing a new pay deal for the majority of staff. The Royal College of Nurses, Pat Cullen, said they remained in a formal dispute with the government.
More than 7 million households will receive a £301 cost of living payment by the end of today. The money's part of a package of government support announced to tackle the cost of living this year.
Royal Mail has unveiled 4 specially decorated postboxes to mark the upcoming coronation. The boxes in London, Edinburgh, Cardiff and Hillsborough display the occasion's official emblem.
Oh, I don't like those.
Oh, come on.
Well, I don't like them.
Why? What's wrong with it?
I think they look very tacky.
Red, white and blue.
There's too much white going on there, really. But just my view. Right, now for a load of old nonsense, which I don't believe in the slightest. This should happen. Cold calling should be banned. It's set to be banned. How can they ban it? It's part of a national strategy, we're told, to tackle scams which cost £7 billion a year.
Yes, it'll form part of a national fraud strategy, which will be announced by the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary today, and it'll be backed by 400 specialist officers.
Leon Emirali, political analyst, joins us now from the studio to give us his thoughts on all of this. Laudable, Leon, laudable, absolutely right. It should be happening. Just can't see how they do it. If someone phones your house and says, give me your national insurance details or whatever, transfer this money into my bank account, I don't see how, if it's coming from Azerbaijan or deepest, darkest Russia or whatever, that these things can be stopped.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big concern. How do you implement this ban? And I think you're right, Eamonn, it's something that everybody wants. This is the type of policy that comes straight out of the focus groups. This is the kind of thing that people are interested in because it impacts their everyday lives. Even if we aren't losing money through it, we are getting annoyed at the fact that our phone's ringing every 5 minutes with someone trying to take our money. So I think it's a good policy in terms of the politics. In terms of the implementation, there's lots of drama on the front pages today speculating how this is implemented. Do we use, for example, spies, or do we use artificial intelligence as a way of being able to combat these fraudsters? But it all seems quite pie in the sky at the moment, and I think, is it potentially one of those policies that's introduced purely for the headlines? Because let's not forget, we are coming into a period now where the general election is looming. So it does feel like a headline grabber rather than something that can be implemented and actually support people's lives.
Is that fair, though, Leon? I mean, apparently it's being based on a similar ban on cold calling around pension products, which was implemented in 2019, and that has seen a reduction in the number of calls. And they talk about 1 in 15 people falling victim to these kinds of frauds. It's certainly something that will resonate with people.
A fall in the reduction of calls. How many? How do we know? Who's verifying those figures?
Well, all I know is it's being replicated on this 2019.
Talk is cheap. I just do not see how, if someone's phoning from India, how you can cut them off, how you can track them down, how you can get money back. I really just think it is all talk.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Eamonn. It's one of the pieces of cynicism I think a lot of people reading those headlines will feel, because ultimately you can legislate in Westminster and you can put into place all these laws that ban the practice of cold calling, of scamming. Of course, that's the right thing to do. But ultimately, if you're in a faraway land and you're hell-bent on being able to scam people for their hard-earned savings, or whatever it might be, you're going to find a loophole, you're going to find a way to do that. So I do think it's quite a legislative hot potato in a way, because how on earth are you going to cross-legislate in other jurisdictions that the UK has no control over? And I think that is going to be the stumbling point of this policy, which otherwise seems to be a very positive step and the right kind of policy that we want for the government to introduce.
Yeah, and this National Fraud Squad has been long promised by the Prime Minister, so getting a cohort of officers specialising in it. I'm sure we'll hear more details when it is announced properly a little bit later on today. Can we ask you about Sue Gray? A lot of Conservatives very unhappy that this exemplary civil servant not only appears to have fallen foul of her own standards within the civil service, but is now not playing ball with an inquiry into her behaviour. That's not on, is it?
It just smells a little bit fishy, doesn't it, Isabel? And I think that's the issue with this story. And look, you know, Sue Gray is not going to be the name on everyone's lips as they have their breakfast this morning. Keir Starmer said that yesterday, and I think he's right. It isn't the sort of retail politics issue that we care about beyond those who are particularly interested in Westminster. But what it does do is start to build this narrative that perhaps Labour can't be trusted, that perhaps something underhand did happen with the appointment of Sue Gray, and that is going to be an issue for Keir Starmer, because one of the big wedges between him and the Conservatives is that he is the stable and steady guy. He is the one not mired by this sleaze. But I think if we start to see some indications that perhaps actually Labour acted improperly or Sue Gray acted improperly, then I think that narrative starts to fall down and it becomes a political issue for Keir Starmer. So I think her whole appointment really has just been a bit of an own goal by Keir Starmer, an unforced error. He didn't need to appoint her. It's becoming more hassle than it's worth, and I think he may well be regretting that decision.
Can I just ask you about Simon Case in all of this? I mean, he's said to be, you know, in Westminster circles, a sort of sworn enemy of Sue Gray. He is, of course, the Prime Minister's Cabinet Secretary. And the papers are saying this morning that he's gone chicken, that he decided not to publish details of what was going on with these meetings between Labour and Sue Gray because it would perhaps be unfair this close to a local election. What's your reading of why he perhaps didn't publish the goods yesterday?
Well, I think that there's a lot going on in Simon Case's orbit. I think there was some briefing over the weekend that perhaps he should be removed from his position. And I think perhaps he was worried about maybe setting a precedent with the Sue Gray issue, that he may well find himself needing to walk a similar tightrope at some point in the future. So I think perhaps, if we're being cynical, he's covering his own back. But I do think that Simon Case, the pressure is building on him. There's been a number of missteps really ever since Boris Johnson left office that have piled the pressure on his own future as the most important civil servant in government. And I think that ultimately the Sue Gray issue conflated with Simon Case's own problems, shall we call them, I think has led to this, which is a slightly murky waters for him when ultimately we expect civil servants to follow procedure, and it seems as though he's diverted from that just slightly.
Leon, thanks for your thoughts and your analysis. Very much appreciated. We'll leave it there.
Good to see you,
Leon Emirali. 24 minutes past 6, and we were talking about those local elections. They are tomorrow. Voters across England will make their decisions at those polls using an ID for the first time.
In Hull, the council's currently Liberal Democrat controlled with a razor-thin majority. And our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley has been speaking to people in the city to test the political temperature.
Hull, the East Yorkshire city next to the River Humber. It's known for its maritime history, unique cream-coloured telephone boxes, and it's the birthplace for slavery abolitionist William Wilberforce. And it's a key political battleground in the council elections, which will see the ruling Liberal Democrats fighting to remain in power since taking control from Labour last year. But just how high will the turnout be?
I'll be voting on Thursday because I think it's important to use your vote, because so many people in the world don't have the, freedom of speech.
No, I won't be voting. I got no photo ID, and I'm not going to mess about putting that, applying for that.
Not bothered either way, if I'm totally honest. I'm not a very political person, so for me, I don't see much of a difference in whether things change or don't change. I don't pay much attention to it, if I'm totally honest.
I'll certainly be voting on Thursday in the elections because we desperately need a change of government.
I won't be voting on Thursday because they're all the same. It's pointless voting. You don't get nowhere voting.
I'll be voting because I think it's important to vote, because it represents the voice of the people.
Mark Carter runs the popular store Hullaballoon in the city centre, selling food, drink and party items. He's struggled like other businesses with the rising cost of living. The store owner believes it's more important than ever to vote in the council elections to shape the future of Hull, particularly to revive trade, with research showing that in 2022, Hull had the most empty shops in the UK.
If a shop is empty, that shop needs to be taken. It's a killer, but rates do have to be paid. Not a lot of people's got money, that's the thing. If you're in London, or you're in Leeds, they might have more money, but I've been here all my life, so I know that I live by my means. I'm not going to, there's not really what I need. I don't need a new Mercedes, I ain't got one, but I don't need one, you get what I mean? So you get used to what you've got, and if you've been used to now, that's what you're used to. I don't live in a 5-bedroom house, so I'm not desperate to pay £2,500 mortgage, but at the end of the day, I love the town. I can say now, my support is going to the people who help me.
74 candidates have put themselves forward here, and the results of this tight race will be announced in the early hours of Friday. Anna Riley, GB News, Hull.
Well, stay with us as the government comes to an agreement with most health unions. We'll find out from a nurse why she, though, will continue to strike despite a pay settlement. Next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And on this Wednesday morning, live from outside Buckingham Palace. A very good morning to you. Eamonn and Isabel here. Breakfast on GB News.
Coming up in the programme at 6:45, we'll be meeting the committed royalist who's been collecting monarch memorabilia since she was a child, and we'll be finding out how she's preparing for this weekend's coronation.
And after 7 o'clock, royal correspondent Mr. Michael Cole, who was here last night broadcasting from Buckingham Palace at the moment it went into lockdown. Those shotgun cartridges thrown over the walls, a controlled explosion following, and it was all captured on tape here during Jacob Rees-Mogg's programme last night. So if you've got something to say, get in touch the usual ways, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News.
I was just going to point out all very dramatic scenes last night, which I'm all very serene here this morning. That being said, there's around 50 coppers just out of shot to our right. They're doing a little walkabout this morning, and we have to say security, probably as a result of what happened last night, extremely tight today.
Yeah. Okay, NHS workers, we're going to talk about those. More than 1 million of them will receive a 5% pay rise. So many unions accepting the government's pay deal yesterday.
Well, the Royal College of Nursing and Unite voted against the pay deal, with the head of the Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen, warning that striking nurses are not going to go away.
Well, let's meet this morning intensive care nurse at the Liverpool Foundation Trust, Kelly Hopkins, regular contributor to the programme. Kelly, good morning to you. A lot of people, they took the offer. You're not so enthusiastic.
No, I'm not. I think as nurses we still need to carry on fighting for what's right. We need to make sure that the staffing levels on the wards are safe, and the only way we can do that is by recruiting more nurses. At the moment they're having to go to university, coming out with thousands of pounds worth of debt, and then earning hardly anything for the responsibility and the working conditions that they're going into. Therefore, we can't attract new talent into the job.
Yeah, you get the pay rise whether you've accepted it or not. And I can see people who will say, well, this solves my problems or this eases my problems to a certain degree. But reading between the lines, what you're saying is that the problems just won't go away. A 5% pay rise won't solve those problems because you'll still have to work harder than you ever had to before, and patient safety is still a big concern for you.
Definitely, yes. I think the pay rise with the cost of inflation just doesn't marry up. So you're going into work and then you're struggling to pay your bills. It's like we were all saying, you can't spend claps in Asda. They were all clapping for us. The government was clapping for us through COVID. And now they're just not prepared to listen to what we're saying. Conditions in A&E are horrendous. I did a shift last Saturday and I was nursing really sick patients on corridors. They've been there for days. How can you wash somebody? How can you give them the care that they deserve when you're on a corridor nursing somebody whose life is potentially at risk? And I just think
Kelly,
they're out
how
of
do you
touch.
respond to the
We just need to
criticisms
come down and see what it's like.
But Kelly, we hear what you're saying and totally agree. I mean, it sounds awful. But how do you respond to those criticisms that I have to say have been increasing with the strike action from people like the former boss of the Royal College of Nursing saying, actually, this strike action is doing the same. It's harming patient safety. There were situations on Monday, were there not, when people were not providing life and limb coverage for patients. Situations in A&E became incredibly grave. Nurses refused to come and help in intensive care when they're being begged to come and help patients. I mean, as a nurse in a vocational profession, what do you say to those criticisms?
So where I work, the critical care was covered by colleagues who weren't in the Royal College of Nursing. The consultants were on as well. And I think as a nurse, if I was asked to go back into work, I would, but I wasn't asked that question. The wards were safe at that point. I just think we've got to carry on fighting. We've got to be heard. People don't realise that if we don't stand up and do something now, there's going to be no NHS to fight for. People's lives are at risk on a daily basis. Us walking out on that day did not put anybody at any further risk than they already are walking into a hospital these days. It's heartbreaking. As a nurse, I've been nursing for 28 years. I never thought I'd be on a picket line. And it's just got to that point where we've got to stand up and do something. I don't think people realise how actually bad it is unless you've actually gone in and sat in an A&E for 36 hours waiting to be seen. You don't understand. There was a patient who was a cancer patient who came to the strike picket line on Monday in a wheelchair, and he was waiting for cancer treatment, and he was supporting us. You know, so we have got the public support. We haven't got the politicians' support, but definitely the public. I saw it for myself on Monday. The amount of people who came up to support us was unbelievable.
Kelly, nobody's doubting what you saw or what you are experiencing, but other unions around you they're either not seeing it the same way or they're not standing with you together on all of this. So how long can your union keep protesting, keep objecting, keep striking?
I think the other unions aren't standing with us because the Royal College of Nursing is the voice of nurses. We are nurses that are in that union. Other unions have other workers who work in the hospital. They have painters, decorators, gardeners, all canteen
haven't
staff.
They're nurses.
We are the voice of nurses, and we are going to carry on fighting, because if we don't, it's already on its knees. There's going to be no NHS for us to fight over, which is very, very concerning.
Kelly Hopkins, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. We don't know how this will all end, but Kelly says she's an ICU nurse. She said her union is the nurses' union. Thank you very much indeed.
Stay with us as we ask why former civil servant Sue Gray has refused to cooperate regarding her job with the Labour leader. Sean McDonald and Emily Carver taking us through the papers next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
And let's bring you up to date with the front pages this morning. We're now going to review the papers. The Mail, all about what happened here last night. The man who was arrested after throwing shotgun shells over the gates at Buckingham Palace. Man held in shotgun cartridges drama at the palace. More on this throughout the morning.
The Guardian is focusing on new anti-protest powers which have been rushed through ahead of the coronation.
Times, It leads on the government's cold calling ban to fight financial fraudsters.
And in the Eye, Tory anger as former Partygate investigator Sue Gray refuses to cooperate into the inquiry into her job with Sir Keir Starmer.
Let's go through the newspapers now. Emily Carver, columnist at Conservative Home, and Sean MacDonald, broadcaster. Very nice to see you both. Glad to have you on board. Emily, you bring us up to date with what the Mail are saying about what happened behind us here last night.
In Buckingham Palace, a man has been arrested. He threw shotgun pellets into the palace grounds. It was seen, and the whole area was then put on lockdown. Very dramatic, not least for GB News presenters and staff here from GB News who were there on the scene. I don't know if viewers at home may have seen a clip of Jacob Rees-Mogg reporting from a porter cabin and then was asked to evacuate. So it really was quite dramatic. He was cool as a cucumber, of course, under these rather tricky situation. But it was fantastic to see that they were okay. This man has been arrested. They don't believe it was a terrorist incident. They believe that he had mental health issues, but we await to see the finer detail. But yes, Buckingham Palace was on lockdown, but I'm glad to see you're there this morning.
Yeah, and it's a very beautiful, if somewhat cold morning today. The palace bathed in a particular peachy colour.
There's not a cloud in the sky this morning. It's been a spectacular sunrise. But policing is certainly very tight here. And Sean, that leads on to your story, the front of The Guardian. And this is the new powers that the police have been given already in time for the coronation.
Yeah, official letters have been sent to anti-monarchists planning peaceful protests at Charles' coronation. It's been described as intimidatory by lawyers. The Home Office's Police Powers Unit wrote to the campaign group Republic, basically to inform them or to ask them to inform their members of these legislative changes that may affect them. They have said that the new powers have been brought forward to prevent disruption at major sporting and cultural events. So this will impact protesters who block roads, airports and railways, and they can face up to 12 months behind bars. Some of the wording of the legislation is a little bit vague, and I think that is in order to be a bit of a catch-all. For example, anyone locking on to others, objects or buildings could face 6 months in jail and an unlimited fine, but that's been described as people even, linking arms in order to disrupt movement. A very, very slippery slope to go down, I think. I mean, I understand that the palace, or how we describe it, the king and the Home Office are going to look to protect their own interests, but I think the moment that we go down that route of preventing any form of protest, it's very difficult to come back from that. You're yet to really see a government relinquish their own powers. I think they never tend to go back, so quite the concern.
Road to go down. How is it? Come on, if you're blocking me on a motorway and I'm sitting there for hours and hours, if you're stopping me seeing my World Snooker Final or my Grand National, or you're hanging from a bridge over a road or whatever it is, how's that a slippery slope?
That's how protest works. I mean, I don't like being disrupted either. I don't like being stopped going to work or getting places. But you can't take away people's right to demonstrate democratically. And I think with this one, they're now so vague. The descriptions of the legislation are so vague. Sorry?
Well, you can still perfectly safely and legally, peacefully protest as everybody else has to, but you just can't go about it in a way that is disruptive to other people's lives, hard-working British people or people trying to turn up for what is an international event. The eyes of the world are going to be on Buckingham Palace and Westminster Abbey this weekend. We can't have protesters, eco-protesters and zealots, frankly, disrupting that for their own cause.
Listen, I'm with you both. I mean, I'm not disagreeing in this sense, and I think the sort of manner in which a lot of the protests have been done of late have been over the top, and I would like to see them clamp down. But what I'm saying is, if you're a true arbiter of free speech and demonstration of what is your democratic right to protest, then it is a slippery slope to start sort of incrementally eating away at those rights.
I think it's hard to get the balance right, really, for any government and police force. People. We live in a free society, but that means everyone needs to have their freedoms, and not just those who protest, but those, as you say, Isabel, who want to go about their daily lives. But yes, I don't think we should clamp down too hard. We are a free society after all.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
But I would, Emily, clamp down on cold calling. And the thing is, though, these moves that have been announced today, you're going front page of the Times. I just don't see how they can implement these. I think this is a lot of talk. I would love to see these moves implemented and working, but I just don't know how they can be.
Yes, I share your scepticism. The Times is saying cold calling banned to fight financial fraudsters. So cold calling will be banned for all financial products as part of a national strategy to tackle the £7 billion a year cost of fraud in Britain. This is clearly a massive issue. Apparently 41% of all offences in this country are fraud related. That is absolutely massive, prying on older people, vulnerable people in particular. But banning cold calling for all financial products, I think that will just harm legitimate businesses. I don't see how people who have bad intentions will be put off by this, particularly with, and we'll come on to this later because it's in the papers as well, particularly with the rise of artificial intelligence. You can change voices, you can call from different countries, you can call from all over the world. I think it will be very difficult to completely ban this from happening. However, more money is going to be put into some kind of new fraud office, which will at least mean that people can report these crimes more easily.
My understanding of how it will work is that apparently it will ban any legitimate cold calling, so something that's trying to sell you insurance, for example. So if you get any cold calls, then you automatically know it's a scam, and therefore it protects those people who are particularly vulnerable. And it has been tried out since 2019 on pension cold calling, so now they're expanding it to all of this. But, you know, fingers crossed it will work, because as you say, £7 billion a year, and it's always the elderly and the vulnerable that get targeted, and it's not right.
Not right. No, it's not right.
Should we talk about Sue Gray? This is also probably, most of us would agree, not right. If you are innocent, which she clearly thinks she is, come out and cooperate with the investigation. But this whole idea of not cooperating when you are the queen of investigations, not least into Partygate, leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth, does it not, Sean?
Yeah, the headline we've got here from the Eye is Sue Gray refuses to help inquiry over Starmer job sparking Tory anger. So she's basically been accused of being disruptive towards the investigation into whether she had spoken to Keir Starmer at the time that she was investigating Boris Johnson. Keir Starmer says that he did have no discussions with Sue Gray while he was she was investigating Johnson, and he doesn't think that anyone would be suggesting so. I think his assertion is that the government is resurrecting this story in order to distract from the cost of living crisis over which they're presiding. But obviously, you have, you know, you've got, I think, is it Simon Case, who seems to be ramping up the investigation in the sense of maybe he's trying to curry a bit of favour with the Conservative government.
Well, no, that's not fair. I mean, he has actually specifically not published stuff because he didn't want the timing of it to be considered political ahead of the elections. He is said to have held back in all of that. But certainly there are lots of questions, I think, that are legitimate that need answering, Emily.
Yes, it's quite remarkable, as you say, the queen of investigations, not to cooperate in an inquiry against herself. It does make Keir Starmer look like Sir Shifty, which is what some of the papers have been calling him, because, you know, he's supposed to be a stickler of the rules, and it seems almost as if he's thrown Sue Gray a little bit under the bus here. Of course, her appointment was made public, and she's obviously received a lot of backlash since. I think it's pretty clear for most spectators here that something has gone awry here, something is not right. It's clear that she was probably speaking to Keir Starmer while she was in a supposedly impartial role. And that is something that we should investigate and we should be concerned about, particularly as whenever there's any allegations against the Conservative Party, they're front page news.
Let's talk, Emily, while we've got you there, front page Financial Times, concerns against artificial intelligence grows. What's the example they're quoting?
So they're talking about the education sector. So shares in a number of companies within that sector have fallen quite dramatically. These are companies like Chegg, Pearson and Duolingo, which is that language learning application that people use to learn foreign languages. ChatGPT is a threat to them, and it's pretty clear why. Because, you know, that can... it can write for you, it can come up with answers for you, it can write essays for you, it can do everything, and it's a threat to the sort of study guides that you might be sold to online. Why do you need a study guide? Why do you need to pay for a study guide when you can get ChatGPT to do it for you? But I think this is just one area that we've seen where AI is a threat to current business models. But I'm worried about the bigger picture about AI. These machines can learn exponentially, while we can only learn in a linear way. They could become more intelligent than us. There are concerns they're already more intelligent than us, and you can just imagine the unintended consequences of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Emily. Every day there's a story about AI that sets my... I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's just, I don't like it. I don't trust it. And I think if all the experts, it's every day another expert coming out saying, whoa, then we just have to listen. Why are we not all putting the brakes on? I really do not mind sounding the alarm klaxon on that one. And what about
Sean,
vaping?
Are you a vapor, Sean?
I'm not a vapor. Do you know, I actually had this conversation quite recently. The story here is Australia is to ban vaping, as teenage use is rising. They're seeing it as them having a bit of a nicotine epidemic. You've got Mark Butler, who's the Australian Health Minister, who has said this is just like they did with smoking. Big Tobacco is taking another addictive product, wrapped it in shiny packaging and added flavours to create a new generation of nicotine addicts. I think the consequences or ramifications of people being addicted to these vape pens are probably still to be seen. It's probably something that's going to take maybe 5, 10, 15 years until the effects are truly known, because it hasn't been around for that long. And you've got the environmental impact as well.
I'm impressed now. How far is the ban going in Australia? Is it just towards teenagers, or is it everywhere? Is vaping banned full stop, or will it be in Australia?
I think in Australia, I mean, it seems to me as if it's going to be banned full stop. I think teenagers are probably the biggest users of the vaping pens, probably for the reasons described, you know, the nice taste, and I've tried them. They are actually quite pleasant.
I must admit that I became a nicotine addict because of e-cigarettes, vapes.
Yeah.
Cigarettes didn't do it for me, but that vape, it's so addictive.
And
really hard to wean off.
These wee pens have got to go somewhere.
The problem is that people are actually consuming more through vaping, because with a cigarette you may, if you've got a real addiction, some people would do 40 a day, but if you're addicted to vaping, you can do it non-stop the whole time.
OK.
So that's
from non-stop, you two have to stop at this stage. Back in 40 minutes' time. For the moment, thank you very much indeed, Sean and Emily, with their look through the morning newspapers, and they'll be back just after 7:30.
Now, if you are a royal super fan, then the Coronation is just wonderful for you. And look, we've been checking in with lots of them up and down the country, people whose love for the royal family, well, in some cases began as early as in childhood.
Now, you're not going to meet Margaret Tyler. Margaret already has an incredible collection of memorabilia, but is adding to it with items commemorating what's going to happen on Saturday. Our reporter Lisa Hartle went to meet her.
The outside of Margaret's house displays her love for the royal family. But when you step through the door and see how vast her royal memorabilia collection is, it's evident just how much she loves the monarchy. Every possible space is filled with photos, mugs and ornaments displaying various royals.
Lots of stuff in my collection. You know, people have come round and tried to sort of account for it, but there's so much here. You know, there's a room at the top of the house, there's Her Majesty's room in there, the Diana room there, you know what I mean? There's lots they can... it takes a long time. My interest is all about the royal family. I just absolutely love anything that comes from them, the shop in London, anywhere that there's anything royal, I'm there.
Margaret met the late Queen and has been to countless royal events in the past, but this year she'll be watching the coronation from home.
On the day of the coronation, drinking lots of tea, definitely, getting up early, don't want to miss anything, just sort of get comfy, keep on drinking cups of tea. He was something like 8 or 9 when he was told that he would be king one day. Well, it's been an awful long wait, hasn't it? So I hope it all goes well. And I think it's warming up now. It was sort of quiet a couple of weeks ago. Not much was happening. But now somehow people are getting a bit more excited about it. You can feel it, can't you? You know.
The devoted royal fan once met the future king.
So I met him on one occasion. They used to have a flower show every year, and I went to it. And my little corgi I had with me, and he said, "Oh, he's nice. I like him," you know. I mean, it's not a real one, but very nice. That is, isn't it? Yeah. God save the king. God save the king.
Although Margaret's collection is already so impressive, she's planning her next trip into central London to buy more items featuring King Charles III. Lisa Hartle, GB News, London.
Yes. Very well.
There we go. Sorry, stay with us. We're going to have more for you on the lockdown of Buckingham Palace last night from somebody who was there when the controlled explosion happened.
OK, but first you can see it's a very lovely day.
It's cold.
Here in London. It is cold, but it's lovely.
It's stunning.
Anyway, let's get the forecast. Alex Deakin with that.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Good morning. Another fine day for most today, perhaps a bit brighter than yesterday. A better chance of seeing a little bit more in the way of blue sky. High pressure is dominating our weather, but low pressure is trying to edge in, and as a result the isobars are squeezing together, hence why the breeze will be picking up. But still, by and large, a fine day today. Not completely dry. There are a few showers through the morning, just working their way up the western side of Scotland. Elsewhere, though, as I said, most places generally dry. Some hazy sunshine coming through, so a brighter day for most compared to yesterday. The breeze picking up, particularly in the south. But here, with some sunshine, temperatures are likely to get up to the high teens, 17, maybe 18 Celsius. A little cooler in the east, but the east coast itself will be a little bit warmer than yesterday as the winds slightly switch direction. We'll see the outbreaks of rain continuing to work across northern Scotland this evening. Nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp here, that rain trickling up towards Orkney. For most, it will be a dry night with clear spells, and again, temperatures are likely to drop down into single figures. So a slightly fresh start to Thursday, particularly with the breeze, which will continue to strengthen. Quite a blustery day in places to come tomorrow, particularly so in the west with these easterly winds. They'll also be bringing a chill back to these eastern coasts. In the southwest, we'll see some outbreaks of rain pushing up during tomorrow morning, spreading through Devon, Cornwall, Somerset, and eventually some of those outbreaks of rain will work into southern and then mid-Wales. Still some patchy rain across the Northern Isles, but for most it'll be another fine, bright day tomorrow. That easterly wind, though, as I said, bringing a chill to the east coast. Get out of the breeze and the sunny spells. We could see temperatures in the mid or even high teens. The long weekends, well, we are going to see some heavy showers, but there'll be dry and bright spells, and it'll still feel pretty warm when the sun's out.
We've got a brand new lineup every Saturday night on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today. Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Brand new Saturday nights on GB News, Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A controlled explosion at Buckingham Palace after a man is arrested for throwing shotgun cartridges at the gates.
Hello there this Wednesday morning. A very good morning to you. 1 minute past 7 o'clock. It is the 3rd of May. This is breakfast on GB News. Eamonn and Isabel here outside Buckingham Palace.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Buckingham Palace was put into lockdown last night after a man threw shotgun cartridges into the grounds. The palace has confirmed neither the King nor the Queen Consort were there during the incident.
Cold calling is to be banned under new government plans to tackle scams. The Prime Minister says the strategy, which also includes the creation of a new national fraud squad, will take the fight to the fraudsters.
More than 1 million NHS staff will see a 5% wage increase after multiple health unions voted to accept the government's deal. However, Unite and the Royal College of Nursing rejected the offer, prompting fears of further walkouts.
Former Partygate investigator Sue Gray is said to be refusing to cooperate with an investigation into her talks with the Labour Party. The Cabinet Office inquiry has now been paused while the Deputy Prime Minister considers the next steps.
And Donald Trump is speaking exclusively to GB News this evening when he sits down with Nigel Farage. The former president will give his take on issues including the coronation, the state of Scottish politics and his own political future.
And thank you for getting in touch with us this morning. We'll try and reflect those the usual ways. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Let us know where you're watching from and how you are marking this coronation week. Well, guests arriving every second, as you see here. It is all go. Our top story, because the man we're about to talk to was an eyewitness of what happened last night, and a man has been arrested after he threw shotgun cartridges at the gates and over the gates of Buckingham Palace.
Yes, the area was locked down and a precautionary controlled explosion was carried out, which was heard live on GB News by Jacob Rees-Mogg as he was interviewing Michael Cole after he had been moved into a porter cabin by the police.
So he'd been moved from a studio into this porter cabin where they thought it was safe. Then the police came and said, oh, you're going to have to get out of here because too late.
Bang.
It's a controlled explosion. Anyway, here it is.
We're just getting the latest word from the Metropolitan Police, and I don't know what it is.
Evacuate now.
We're going to have to evacuate now.
The police are live with us now and are telling us that we've got to evacuate even
I don't
from this
see why we could possibly
porter cabin.
have to move.
So I'm very sorry to say that it is good evening from me for the time being, as I think that was probably a controlled explosion in the background. That's what it sounded like to me.
Wow.
Well, so frightening was all of that, it turned our next guest's hair white. he was Ravenhead coloured for this. And so there was Michael Cole, former royal correspondent. So you talk us through all the action that happened last night.
First thing we realised was the road which runs behind this little tented village of ours was being cleared. And first of all, I thought, because we'd seen the King go up and down a little earlier, I thought, well, the King is going to come and inspect the media village.
Right.
Because always the Queen at Commonwealth Heads of Government meetings, she would always come and meet the media people on the basis of know your enemy, essentially.
Yes.
So, but no, they said, first of all, get off the road. And then they came to us here and they said, no, you're going to have to go to our little cabin in the woods up there, about 660 yards away. And so we set up in the porter cabin, and I said to the cameramen, and they were brilliant, let me just tell you, I said, look, why don't we do the show right here? So he said, we can do it.
You can tell you worked in TV. You can tell you were there.
The show must go on.
Exactly, that was the only good thing I did.
No.
And so it was. So they brought the camera in, and as you just saw, Jacob Rees-Mogg, let me just tell you something. He's a good man under fire. And I tell you what we will appreciate. He's not in our business, but he did extremely well, ad-lib, and he found the right words. Now, at that moment, we didn't know what was going on. Nobody told us anything. It was just, you go and stand over there. So I said, quite reasonably, because when I'm going about my lawful occasions, I don't like to be told that I can't. So I said, why do we have to evacuate? I want to see a policeman or a policewoman here to tell us. I'm not going to go on rumour. And at that moment, the controlled explosion went off. Now, we've spent a lot of time in Belfast. That was a cap gun, as far as I was concerned, a very minor explosion. But then they said, look, you can't stay here, you've got to evacuate. And we went outside the main gate and we were milling around with about, I don't know, a couple of hundred technicians who are all here. But the great thing was we then, for a third time, were able to get up on air using techniques including telephones and so on, and we could continue the broadcast and actually start talking about the coronation instead of this minor incident. I can only just say, minor incident, nobody hurt, and in the words of the Rolling Stones, it's all over now.
It's not being treated as a terrorist incident. This is considered to be a lone wolf with mental health issues. But as you describe it, minor, yet the proximity to the palace reminded to us all, really, of how easily things can be derailed and the impact of just one person on all of the media operations, on what could be on the big day, the procession itself, and indeed, the welfare of the royal family.
Do you know, I feel there's a new sort of continental drift going on, and all the nuts are rolling towards Buckingham Palace, which is a great shame. But the great thing is this, and I'm not part of your family, although I'm very friendly with you. GB News is the Coronation station. We were the only people on air. We were the only people who got the explosion. And we were the only people who actually filmed the arrest from a distance. So we were there. I can't understand what all these other pygmies are doing along here. All these tents are empty. Nobody was on air. So I think, in a very, very real way, GB News, just over a year old, is becoming an even more important part of the mainstream of this country, and giving people who usually don't have a voice or are given a voice grudgingly space to have their views heard.
2 years old.
It's 2 years old. Well, congratulations.
2 years old.
It is, we were on
and
air
Princess
all year
Charlotte
last
was
year, and I
8
did
years
6 months
old
before that.
yesterday. But I just walked through here. I came down Park Lane. They've closed off Curzon Street, 3 days beforehand. And of course, Green Park is closed. I saw one lone jogger. I don't know how he got in. I think he'll be vaporised by the time he gets to the Wellington Arch. But just to bring it back to where we are, this is Green Park. My mother was born in 1910. When she got her first job just across the road there at the Girl Guides Association at the age of 18, she used to walk across Green Park every morning, and she always used to see the King, King George V, and he used to ride round on his horse in his bowler hat, and he would raise his hat to the young ladies.
Gosh.
No policeman with him. That's the difference.
Gosh.
That's the difference.
What a
That's the
story.
difference.
But my friend, we're now in a situation whereby whether it does attract more activists, more nutters, more anybody who wants to protest or not, security is going to be ramped up. We saw it here today. It's much tighter today, and it was tight before all of this. Policing, controlling crowds that are going to be here, celebratory crowds, is going to be an absolute nightmare. Everybody's going to be very jittery.
Of course, and that's why people ought to act responsibly, think of other people for a change, these activists and so on. This is a great day. We haven't seen anything in this country, or the world hasn't seen anything in this country like this for 70 years. Behave, be a bit responsible, be a bit caring for other people. There'll be lots of children here, there'll be lots of other people, and people who want to get there. Let's not disrupt them, let's not interfere with them, let's not impede them, let's help them, let everybody have a great day. Have your say afterwards, have your political demonstrations afterwards, but come together with the rest of the nation and indeed the rest of the world, because this is going to be a great event. Security is, of course, the bane of our age. I mean, this is what's been going on for the last 50 years.
And a word of respect and applause for the young men and women who are patrolling the perimeters here and who were freezing when we arrived here today in their high-vis jackets. To the police officers yesterday I spoke to with their sniffer dogs around the place. It is very, very intense, a big responsibility on their shoulders, and they do a tremendous job.
I actually spoke to all of them, and that made them laugh a little bit about, you know, how long have you been here and all the rest of it. And it is important. Of course, there has to be these restrictions. It's a shame that there has to be, but they do. And here we have a beautiful sight this morning with the eastern sunlight bouncing off the eastern facade of Buckingham Palace. I see the sovereign's standard is flying over there, but I can tell you he's not there, because the other way of knowing whether the monarch is at home is that they have 2 sentries on either side, not just one.
Not just one.
Not just one. There's only one this morning.
So that's a bit misleading. I thought if the flag was flying, that was the sign that the monarch was there. And I remember during the Platinum Jubilee, we were actually over the other side at Australia Gate. And we were waiting for, all the other royals had been trooping the colour, or they were waiting for her to troop the colour. And once she arrived by helicopter from, I think, Windsor Castle, the big old flag went up. So we knew the exact moment that her feet were in the palace.
The big one is the size of a tablecloth. When that goes
up,
the big one. You'll see
that was the big one, right. So
at the moment, just over there
house.
is Lancaster House, and behind it is Clarence House, and that is where the King and the Queen are at this moment. But
Clarence House.
Clarence House.
I thought they might have been in the Premier Inn on the road there.
No, Lenny Henry was inviting them, obviously.
Listen, I have to ask you some serious royal news before we let you go, Michael, because we saw Princess Anne doing a big interview yesterday, and she came across, I think, understated in her usual way. Sort of actually really reminded me of her father. A lot of people saying paying tribute to her mother, but she had that kind of no-nonsense thing about her. But the news line that came out of it all was that she basically said she thought a slimmed-down monarchy wasn't necessarily a good thing. What did you make of that?
First of all, I have interviewed Princess Anne, now the Princess Royal. I interviewed her on the purple plain of Upper Burma near the Irrawaddy River.
Wonderful.
And as I interviewed her, the well-known phrase which involves a blood and a stone actually came through my mind. And of course it was typical Jack Blunt stuff yesterday. I think she was, in naval terms, firing a little shot across her older brother's bows. I think the most interesting thing she said, we'll get on to the slimmed-down monarchy, but the most interesting thing she said was that you're not going to change my brother. He's set in his ways. He's going to do what he's going to do. What you see is what you get. I think that was a fairly good paraphrase. And I think that's absolutely right. You know, over the years, waiting to become monarch, Prince Charles, as he then was, now King Charles, became inured to the criticism, much of it unfair, and now he feels that he's going to do what he thinks is right all the time. And I do believe that he's right. His instinct is to slim down the royal family to the direct line of succession, the Prince of Wales, Prince William, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis. And I think what he's doing, consciously or unconsciously, he's channeling his grandfather, King George VI, because he said that the royal family was best when it was just us four, by which he meant himself, Queen Elizabeth, who became the Queen Mother, and the two princesses, Elizabeth and her sister Margaret. And I think that is right. I think in these straitened economic times, I don't think we'll ever see 20 or 25 or even 30 members of the royal family standing on that balcony ever again. It gives the wrong image. Okay, what Princess Anne was saying is sensible. She's saying, you know, how are we going to do all the work? Because people have dropped out. Well, of course, the death of the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen are greatly to be regretted. But of course, the Duke of Sussex and his wife, they've gone to California, and Prince Andrew has his own little black cloud over his head at the moment, and he's not taking part in royal events. But you know what I think? I mean, I wrote, can you believe this, my first royal story in 1962. That's an awful long time ago, 61 years. And then every single royal event was a major thing for the regional papers, for the local papers, even for the national papers. A lot of the time, the people in the press office here get frustrated because these events go almost unnoticed. I think this could be a case where less is more. A royal event is really an event. Yeah. When I started in this business, and you too, royal interviews were almost unknown. Yeah. Now, I won't say it's 10 a penny, but you know, yesterday, and I must say, congratulations to our camera crew yesterday, who were utterly brilliant, who decamped twice and then came back and put us on the air. And also congratulations to our neighbours, the Canadians, because they got that interview with Princess Anne, and they got more out of her than I did.
Okay, well, they must have been good then, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely talking to you, and I'm glad you survived everything last night. Thank you very much.
Now, the King and Queen's coronation will be celebrated across the country, but the lead-up hasn't been without controversy.
Months of planning and secret rehearsals are expected to mitigate any last-minute hurdles, but are some problems simply out of the King's control? Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker with more.
Not my king! Not my king! Not my king! Not my king!
The Duke of Sussex will attend the coronation of King Charles, his father, but the Duchess of Sussex will not.
Practice makes perfect, but secret rehearsals can only smooth out certain snags. His Majesty's coronation is a once-in-a-lifetime event for him, and officials will be doing everything possible to make sure nothing overshadows the King's big day.
We've now seen eggs thrown at the King. I don't think in her long reign we ever saw an egg thrown at the Queen, which demonstrates to me that the support for the Queen was not the same as support for the monarchy. The Queen commanded support in her own person.
Last month, Buckingham Palace took the unusual step to confirm Prince Harry would be attending the coronation, perhaps in an attempt to avoid further speculation about family feuds. It was only January when Harry's newly released memoir branded the Queen Consort a villain, an accusation which bothered and hurt Her Majesty, according to a friend, but she chose to rise above it. Out of the media spotlight, Meghan will be staying behind in California with the two children. It's understood the Duchess wants to spend her son's birthday with him, which falls on the day of the coronation. Critics have branded the decision a snub, however, pointing to Harry and Meghan's wedding, where Charles walked his new daughter-in-law down the aisle.
I've lived every girl's dream.
While some have turned down their invitation, others didn't even get one. The Duchess of York, Prince Andrew's former wife, has confirmed she didn't make the cut. It's also emerged that Lady Pamela Hicks, a bridesmaid and former lady-in-waiting to the late Queen, has not received an invite. The King has sent his great love and apologies to her.
We want an election, not a coronation!
Anti-monarchy protests are also on the rise. Republic, the campaign group calling to replace the monarchy with an elected head of state, is hoping for up to 1,000 people protesting along the procession route. Organisers expect their plans to be noisy, but peaceful.
We'll be making some noise, there'll be a bit of a party atmosphere, and try and engage with the people around us, and keep it fairly light-hearted, and make sure that when the procession goes past, we are unmissable.
There are fears, however, that eco-extremists could cause chaos. The Mail on Sunday reports a plot to use rape alarms to spook the King's horses, a stunt that could cause serious injuries or even death, according to a former Grenadier Guard. For the coronation to be a success, the great British public have to be on side. More than half of people surveyed think the coronation should not be funded by the government, according to a recent YouGov poll. A majority of Brits, however, are in favour of keeping the monarchy. The challenge for the institution is making a 1,000-year-old tradition relevant to the 21st century. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Will you join us live this morning from Buckingham Palace? The time is 7:19. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. NHS nurses in England are threatening to return to the picket line despite ministers agreeing a new pay deal for the majority of staff. The Royal College of Nurses Pat Cullen said they remained in a formal dispute with the government. More than 7 million households will receive a £301 cost of living payment by the end of today. The money is part of a package of government support announced to tackle the cost of living. Royal Mail has unveiled 4 specially decorated postboxes to mark the upcoming coronation. The boxes in London, Edinburgh, Cardiff and Hillsborough display the occasion's official emblem. Well, stay with us. Coming up, as Australia bans vaping as part of a massive public health crackdown, we'll be asking if Britain could be next. That's straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us 4, plus a special guest. Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very warm welcome back to the programme. The time is 7:24. Still to come this morning at 7:45, we'll be visiting one of the specially decorated postboxes that have been unveiled across the UK to mark the King's coronation. And at 8:10, Nigel Farage will be joining us. He's got an exclusive this evening with former President of the United States, Donald Trump, which will be airing on this very channel tonight. And don't forget, you can send in your thoughts throughout the course of the programme, gbnews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBNews. I'm just going to give you a little flavour of a few that have been coming in on cold calling. Sue in Cheshire says, if these cold calls cannot be able to be stopped completely, at least help people know if they get a call that could be illegal, so people are more likely to ignore it and put the phone down. Also, let people report those calls as well. I think that is exactly what the government is hoping to achieve. Bill says, Eamonn, you are so correct about cold calling. It's a blight. Even BT say they can't stop it, as scammers seem to be using ever smarter ways of making calls. We'll be talking about that up next. So cold calling is set to be banned as part of a national strategy to tackle the £7 billion a year cost of the scams. It forms part of a national fraud strategy to be announced by the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary today, which will be backed by 400 specialist officers. Well, let's get the views on all of this from Leon Emirali, political analyst, who joins us from the studio. Good morning to you, Leon.
Morning.
Look, this is welcome news to a lot of people. I think 1 in 15 of us have been affected by these kinds of scams. But how will it work in practice?
Well, I think that's the big question on everyone's lips, Isabel. This is the type of policy that has come straight out of the focus groups. I mean, this is the type of retail politics that people want to see from the government, because we've all been annoyed by these scams and these cold calls, and some of us have even been unfortunate enough to have lost money through them. So I think it appeals to a broad range of the electorate, but the devil will be in the detail as to whether or not this can actually be implemented in a way that has the effects that Rishi Sunak and the Home Secretary want to see, because ultimately they can legislate in the UK, they can put in place these task forces to stop it, but if ultimately you've got someone from a foreign land who wants to call into the UK to conduct one of these scams, there's very little to stop them. So the blanket ban on cold calling seems to be the way that they're going about that, but whether or not that's going to work in the way that the pension scam scheme worked previously, we don't know, because ultimately this is going to be a block on every single cold call that you might get.
Well, I suppose that's the template then that the government will be rolling out, as you mentioned, the 2019 ban on pension cold calls. But if it just gives people that little bit of reassurance that they know if they are getting a cold call, it will be illegal, and therefore reducing the scams, something's got to be done. It's costing £7 billion a year, which is a huge impact on the economy.
£7 billion a year, 1 in 15 people impacted by it. Quite extraordinary numbers. And yes, I think the Prime Minister's right to want to crack down on this. But I think there's one important component missing here, which is the education of people about these scams. And I think we should be empowering individuals, especially those perhaps of certain generations where this is a new phenomenon, where they're not necessarily sure what a scam looks like, what might be said in these scam phone calls, to educate those audiences, to allow them to make their own decision about what's right and what's wrong. And I think that's the one component of this policy that's missing that could have a big impact, as well as the legislative and more sort of legal procedures that Rishi Sunak's proposing here. So I do think it's going to be a popular policy on the doorstep, but whether or not it works is a completely different question.
I've got to ask you about Sue Gray, Leon, whilst we've got you. This is the lady who's queen of the inquiries. Of course, she investigated Partygate. It's reported that she's refusing to cooperate with the investigation into her own conduct and whether or not she was discussing joining the Labour Party as her chief of staff while she was investigating possible breaches within Downing Street.
There's something that just doesn't quite smell right about this story, Isabel, and I think that is what is going to be on the mind of particularly Keir Starmer, is that has he, in trying to appoint Sue Gray as his chief of staff, has he put his foot in it by making Labour look as if they're up to things that are perhaps underhand, that aren't done by the book? And I think that is one of Keir Starmer's key pledges to the public, is that he is whiter than white, cleaner than clean, and yet this whole procedure seems to be throwing that into disrepute. So I do think that Keir Starmer has potentially going to be regretting the decision to appoint Sue Gray. And I think it's only right and proper that, given she was so close to those in government, the Conservative government, it's only right and proper that she takes on that position with the Labour Party after the general election. Otherwise, there could be political gains that are gained from Sue Gray's appointment that are particularly unfair. So I think this is a story that's going to rumble and rumble. I don't think we've necessarily heard the end of it because, of course, the report itself has yet to be released.
Yeah, and of course it doesn't help with the sort of negative press that's been coming out around civil servants in recent weeks. And interesting that Simon Case himself, who, you know, there have been questions about whether or not the government still have confidence in him, has actually put a stop to details of that meeting being put into the public domain yesterday. Why do you think he's done that?
I think there's some talk that Simon Case has a personal vendetta against Sue Gray. I don't necessarily think that's the case here. I think there is a wider context around Simon Case where his own future is in doubt. I mean, there has been talk about whether or not he stays on or how long he stays on ever since Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister and towards the tail end of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss's tenure too. So there are question marks over his future, and I think perhaps he's got one eye on setting a precedent in delivering these kinds of reports about what civil servants can do after they leave government, because he may well find himself in a similar situation in a couple of months or a year's time. He doesn't necessarily want to create a rod for his own back. So that's what might be going on, or it may just be simply because, you know, there are bigger issues at play here, perhaps personal issues between him and Sue Gray. But I think it's less likely to be those lines and more on him protecting his own future.
OK, Leon Emirali with that. Thank you very much indeed.
With the time at 7:31, let's talk about Australia now. And Australia's government's working to ban recreational vaping as part of a major public health initiative.
The ban will see a heavy set of controls on imports and packaging to discourage vaping.
So we're now joined by Dr. Sheriff Sultan. Dr. Sultan is president of the International Society for Vascular Surgery, and he joins us from Galway in Ireland today. Dr. Sheriff, what do you make of what Australia is trying to do, and if it works there, could this ban be introduced in Britain as well?
Strong government that was able to overcome the bureaucracy and the inertia that's happening currently in Europe and the United States. Unfortunately, in Europe and the United States, we are hampered by legal challenges against the vaping companies and the big tobacco companies. However, in Australia, they looked at it, they analyzed the situation, and they have looked at all the research. And one of their findings, which was amazing, that the publication of all the research in it, they found that 80% have no conflict of interest, but 20% were supported by the tobacco industry. And all of them, in this 20%, there was six-fold increase of no harm from vaping. So this has raised a lot of alarms over there. We know that they target our kids. They're using candies and fruity flavor, gummy bear, mango, and mint in order to lure this lovely young kids, which is the currency of the future. The minute they get addicted because their brain is developing, they are hooked on it, and they will be doubling on vaping and smoking. And by the way, vaping is not safe. If you look at the vaping, if you put 3 mils in that vaping device, it will give you 14 milligrams of combustion. If you do that for normal cigarettes, it's less than 4 milligrams. So it gives you almost 5-fold increase in the amount that go into your lungs and alveoli. Moreover, there is 15% more formaldehyde in it, and this is a problem. Others, we have seen that the CDC, after the COVID infection in the United States, showed that anybody who had vaping have 45% of dying and 39% of being ventilated. Now the COVID is gone, so back again to the normal way, because until 2019, we were talking about vaping. COVID came in, we stopped talking about vaping. Now it's back on the agenda because we realize the problem that we're facing. I congratulate the Australian government, and I hope European will follow.
Fascinating. Listen, to hear you talking about some of the health implications on people and people losing their limbs as a result of vaping excessive amounts of nicotine is really quite stark. We appreciate your time, Dr. Sultan. Thank you very much for shedding light on that. I have to say, at the weekend, I was at the beach and I saw somebody with a brand new baby. Oh, you okay there?
This chair has a life of its own. It just keeps moving.
The baby was 3 months old, and the mother was vaping and exhaling onto the baby, and obviously she doesn't think she's doing any harm because it's not a cigarette. But with what we're hearing from Australia, what we're hearing from the consultant there, there needs to be more advice for people, mothers, and well, for everybody. But obviously, if there's a little baby inhaling that cannot be good.
But the world is just full of lies, and advertising perpetrates more lies than anything else. That is it good for us? Is it not good for us? If it's not good for us, the way of sugar is not good for us. Governments do something about it, excuse me, let me say, and the reason they don't is because of the, you've made me forget what I was going to say, the lobbying industries. The lobbying industries on behalf of sugar, on behalf of tobacco, on behalf of petrochemicals. This is where the real power is. And then it ends up that we're not told the truth. It's either the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Are you killing people eventually by selling vapes? And if that's the way, that's a despicable way of making money.
I totally agree, and I do think it has to boil down to common sense. Can it be good for you to be constantly putting something in your mouth and inhaling and exhaling something? Your brain probably says to you, if you think about it, on balance of probability, you're better off probably with air. That's my method.
Were you ever tempted? Do you ever think you could have been a smoker?
No, I was never. I'm lucky. I'm really pleased I wasn't. I've got friends who do smoke, but I never felt tempted, and I'm grateful that I never got hooked on it, because I know it's very, very difficult to shrug off. But I
always felt pressure to do it.
Did you?
Yeah, but I never took to it, and I just never took to it. It wasn't for me. I always fancied the idea of cigars, but cigars hung around in your mouth for days afterwards, no matter how often you cleaned your teeth and whatever. They're very strong things. So these things are either, harmless or they are killing us. Just tell us the truth. So I think very brave of Australia to do what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, your view's very welcome.
Right, stay with us. Oh.
I think what we're
they
saying
wanted us
is,
to pause for something there, but nothing
we're
arrived.
Saying we're going to do the newspapers next.
I've not got that.
Well, I'm just guessing.
Oh, right.
I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking it's
okay.
newspaper
Let's
time.
do the newspapers now.
Yes, let's do it next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us 4, plus a special guest. Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I tell you what, my goodness me, if the King got this weather for his coronation on Saturday, it would be picture postcard perfect. It would absolutely be. Blue sky, sunbathing the palace there. It is cold, and it was very cold, and it's got maybe a degree or two warmer.
It's about 6 degrees, 7 degrees, something like that. So it's a bit nippy, but it's the best kind of crisp spring day, really.
Yeah.
Sort of blue skies, no clouds, beautiful sunshine, and yeah.
And a good week for a coronation.
Good week to get a crown on your head.
We've got Emily Carver, we've got Sean MacDonald, and they've got the newspapers for us this morning. Hello, guys. And we're talking, Emily, you cannot be in central London, but the traffic. I mean, I face this 15 quid charge every day, or is it 15 quid each way? I don't know what it is, but suddenly you realise at the end of the month what you've paid for your, what is it called? What's your congestion charge? Yeah. Congestion charge. And you're going to talk about this. This features in the Sun today. What's the verdict?
Well, that it's miserable. I think there's a play on words in the headline here. You les miserable, which may be a play on les miserables. You les miserables. Anyway, apparently the traffic ecozone, which they call it, is going to cost the economy £500 million, which doesn't sound very good. That's every year. And this is because a lot of businesses, mainly, aren't going to be able to work in the city centre very easily. We've heard from people who, white van types, trying to do their business. It's costing them, well, as you say, £12.50 every day, plus the congestion charges. It's already very difficult to get around London in a vehicle anyway, and it's just becoming prohibitively expensive for people. Of course, this is Sadiq Khan's plans. Howard Cox from, what's his place called? It's called Fair Fuel. He's very, very angry about this. He's quoted here. He says it fleeces drivers, sole traders and low-income motorists. However, of course, the Mayor of London is saying this is all about making the air cleaner for absolutely everyone. But I don't understand why they have to extend it into all the boroughs of Greater London where there isn't this pollution issue. It seems horribly unfair.
Yeah, so it goes out into... I don't know, Kingston, it goes out into Twickenham, it goes out into Weybridge, it just extends and extends and extends. It will extend, actually, Emily, until they reach the M25, and then that's a whole other pollution issue.
What it does is it pushes the traffic onto various roads outside. The congestion charges do the same, and it actually makes the air pollution worse in some suburban areas. So I'm not sure if this is... I wonder if there's going to be some rollback on this. Sadiq Khan seems very committed to it, but we've already got sort of vigilante groups tearing down the cameras around London because they're furious about this. So it's a bit of a battle with the public. It's not a good look for Sadiq Khan.
Well, here's another thing. You see, there are, which no government will ever address, there are simply far too many cars. But cars equal jobs, and they equal jobs in Derby and Sunderland and wherever where the cars are built. And no one's going to say, oh, let's tax cars more, let's build less cars, because they get money that way. But then they lead to all sorts of other problems in other places. And the bit about the white van man, Emily, I have huge respect for anyone who's a tradesperson and how on earth they do their job. I mean, if you fit carpets, if you're a paper and decorator, if you are a scaffolder, how they stop in London side streets, where you live is a very good example, and how they unload their vehicles, how they do their work. And
with everyone beeping their horns.
Everybody beeping their horns.
There have been young reporters who have been sent out to see if they could, carry their paintbrush and their ladder onto the tube or on the bus. And guess what? It's near impossible. You can't really, as a boiler man, for example, carry around all your tools and kit needed to change one. So we need to make it easy for white van men to get around the city centre because we need them.
Yes, but, we talk about the cost to the economy. It also is the birth of innovation, isn't it, when you have these kinds of things? If they can come up with better ultra-low emission white vans, for example,
Fuels,
no one's saying they can't drive those. And there's a market then to be building those, electric vehicles and getting those lithium batteries off the ground, all things we want to have here in the UK.
But the hypocrisy of people like Mayor Khan, I would say, Sean, the difficulty is, and you'll have seen this in Glasgow, you'd see it in any city at all, councils grant planning permission for apartments in particular to be built on main thoroughfares, at junctions, at roundabouts. Unbelievable that people would not be able to open their windows unless they were going to breathe in acrid smoke. And yet these same councils who criticise air quality grant the building of domestic habitats in the middle of all of this. That is hypocrisy, I think.
Yeah, Glasgow's absolutely awash with those types of properties, and they're springing up absolutely everywhere. And as you say, even to be putting up these types of buildings, but then making it very difficult for those very same people who would build them to come and do their jobs just seems completely counterproductive to me. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah. OK, National Anthem. I want to talk to you about National Anthem. There is a call. This is in the Times, this one. A third of Britons think the National Anthem should be changed. Now, this is very controversial, but I put it to you, my friend, that in Scotland, at big national events, I'd often hear Flower of Scotland being sung. In Wales, what's the one they sing in Wales?
Bread of Heaven.
Bread of Heaven or something. They'll sing that. In Ireland, for our rugby team, we have a song called Ireland, Ireland, I think it's called. But it's very good.
That's a catchy one.
It's a catchy one. But it is a catchy one.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, of course, the politics of Irish rugby is that there's a lot of people from the north who take part in the national team. Yeah. So it's played as a one-island sport. But the national anthem in the north is the
national anthem,
the very one, the very, very one. Whereas they make this neutral sort of anthem, Ireland's Call, that's what it is. And everybody loves this. Now, I think if Northern Ireland is ever to progress or be united, there has to be the unpalatable thing, Sean, of changing the national anthem to something that will combine everybody in Northern Ireland, which the national anthem does not.
Yeah, well, I mean, this survey was conducted by Babel, the language learning platform, and they basically have deduced that, I think, 1/3 of the British population, but it seems to be categorised as Gen Z, so that would come under 18 to 24, think that it should be changed. But I think only 27% of their parents' generation think that it should be changed. I mean, how are we even defining it? Because I would have always assumed that God Save the Queen or God Save the King was specifically the English national anthem. Because as you correctly point out, you know, at Hampden Park or Murrayfield in Scotland, we would be singing Flower of Scotland. So I find that a bit of a confusing one. I mean, some of I think the survey determined that 34% of people wanted it to be changed to Land of Hope and Glory, but then quite comically 5% wanted it to be changed to Wonderwall by Oasis. So I'm not sure also how seriously I would be taking the
no, that's not.
I mean, that just throws the whole argument out the window.
I want to ask you. Were you at the Old Firm game at the weekend?
Yes, I was at the Glasgow Derby on Sunday. Very, very happy with the outcome.
At that, doing my Instagram rounds or TikTok rounds was a chant from the Celtic supporters as to what you could do with your coronation. You may well have heard it, but it was.
We're looking at you, Sean.
It was quite interesting. So basically, no, you wouldn't repeat it. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is that there wasn't out-and-out support from the terraces for the coronation.
No, there wasn't, not from the Celtic support, but obviously very typically not in complete support of the Crown, whereas their counterparts on the other end of the stadium would be more loyal to the Crown, and I believe they may have been singing in support of it. I think that's what makes that game so special as well and so intense. But it certainly created a lot of headlines around the world, but it's to be expected.
So, Emily, do you have a view on whether it's one national anthem for the whole of the UK, or should there be sections for Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland and England?
Well, I mean, God Save the King is meant to be for the Union, but perhaps that's naive of me to think that the Scottish see it as their national anthem too. I mean, there is a case for maybe England to have a special one, which could be Jerusalem, could be Land of Hope and Glory, could be I Vow to Thee, My Country, might be nice, although it's a bit slow probably.
They're all belters. Love them all.
Belters. A British hymn, great.
Beautiful. I love them all.
Guys, thank you. From a national anthem to a national postbox. 4 postboxes have been specially decorated by Royal Mail in celebration of the coronation. Where are they, Isabel?
They are in London, but also in Edinburgh, Cardiff and Hillsborough in Northern Ireland. And our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, has managed to track one down in Westminster, of course, being Tom. Good morning to you. What do you make of it?
Good morning. Yes, no, we're used to seeing these post boxes up and down the land in the traditional red colour, but I have to say these 4 special post boxes that have been selected in special locations across the United Kingdom are no longer just red. They're red, white and blue, and we can see a fine example of London's post box here, which has, of course, the emblem of the coronation upon it, designed by Johnny Ive, the guy that designed the iPhone. Upon that emblem, of course, the flower of each of the constituent parts of the UK, the rose for England, the shamrock for Ireland, the thistle for Scotland, and indeed the leek for Wales. And of course, written upon these post boxes too, the coronation. It has been decorated in celebration of the coronation of their Majesties, King Charles III and Queen Camilla. And just to top it all off there, a Union flag at the bottom. So there are, as I say, 4 of these: London, Edinburgh, Hillsborough and indeed Cardiff, representing those 4 constituent parts of the United Kingdom. And this is all coinciding too with something else that Royal Mail is doing, and that is, for the 3rd time in history, a special unique coronation stamp. These will be being produced over this week and showing things like street parties as well as the formal elements of the coronation. It's just one of those things that's getting the country that bit more excited in the run-up to Saturday.
Excited with the capital E.
The only problem with these is that you have to actually send some post, and I can't remember the last time I posted anything in a letterbox.
Really?
Well, I do thank you letters and things at
What about
Christmas and
bills?
birthdays. It's all online. It's all
official
digital.
yeah.
But I mean, I need a reason, Tom, to go and post something.
Yeah.
I don't know when you last posted something, but I'm going to go and, well, I'll think of something to post and then I'll seek one out. Thank you very much.
You're right. They take the whole idea of everything's done online,
Yes.
or anything else is done by delivery vans.
The only time I ever post anything is a handwritten thank you letter after a birthday or Christmas. Or a party or something.
So proper, Isabel. So that's the right thing to
It's
do.
the
That is the right thing to do. Do you sort of beat your children with a stick
Yes.
unless they do the same
Yeah,
thing?
absolutely. They cry at the kitchen table
That's the
until
right
they're
thing
all
to do.
written.
Yeah, but it is the proper and right thing to do. Coming up, we're going to have more on the lockdown here at Buckingham Palace last night. So what happened is this bloke came up to the gate and he started throwing shotgun shells over the fence there. But of course, the police didn't know there were shotgun shells at the time. There was a controlled explosion carried out on them. Anyway, the full story after the weather forecast with Alex Deakin.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Good morning. Another fine day for most today, perhaps a bit brighter than yesterday. A better chance of seeing a little bit more in the way of blue sky. High pressure is dominating our weather, but low pressure is trying to edge in, and as a result the isobars are squeezing together, hence why the breeze will be picking up. But still, by and large, a fine day today. Not completely dry. There are a few showers through the morning, just working their way up the western side of Scotland. Elsewhere, though, as I said, most places generally dry. Some hazy sunshine coming through, so a brighter day for most compared to yesterday. The breeze picking up, particularly in the south, but here with some sunshine, temperatures are likely to get up to the high teens, 17, maybe 18 Celsius. A little cooler in the east, but the east coast itself will be a little bit warmer than yesterday as the winds slightly switch direction. We'll see the outbreaks of rain continuing to work across northern Scotland this evening. Nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp here, that rain trickling up towards Orkney. For most, it will be a dry night with clear spells, and again, temperatures are likely to drop down into single figures. So a slightly fresh start to Thursday, particularly with the breeze, which will continue to strengthen. Quite a blustery day in places to come tomorrow, particularly so in the west with these easterly winds. They'll also be bringing a chill back to these eastern coasts. In the southwest, we'll see some outbreaks of rain pushing up during tomorrow morning, spreading through Devon, Cornwall, Somerset, and eventually some of those outbreaks of rain will work into southern and then mid-Wales. Still some patchy rain across the Northern Isles, but for most it'll be another fine, bright day tomorrow. That easterly wind, though, as I said, bringing a chill to the east coast. Get out of the breeze and the sunny spells. We could see temperatures in the mid or even high teens. The long weekends, well, we are going to see some heavy showers, but there'll be dry and bright spells, and it'll still feel pretty warm when the sun's out.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News, we're starting the conversation and having the debate that the establishment won't have.
No one will be cancelled.
Join me at 4 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday. We'll be discussing all the big topics of the weekend.
Oh, get cracking!
Always honest, always fun. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A controlled explosion at Buckingham Palace after a man's arrested for throwing shotgun cartridges at the gates.
Good morning. We're live at Buckingham Palace this morning. It's 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 3rd of May. You're very welcome to breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Yeah, and here we are the morning after the night before. Buckingham Palace was put into lockdown last night after a man threw shotgun cartridges into the grounds. The palace has confirmed that neither the King nor the Queen were there during the incident.
In other news, cold calling is to be banned under new government plans to tackle scams. The Prime Minister says the strategy, which also includes the creation of a new national fraud squad, will take the fight to the fraudsters.
More than 1 million NHS staff will see a 5% wage increase. Multiple health unions have voted to accept the government's deal. However, Unite and the Royal College of Nursing, the nurses' union, rejected the offer, prompting fears of further walkouts.
Former Partygate investigator Sue Gray is said to be refusing to cooperate with an investigation into her talks with the Labour Party. The Cabinet Office inquiry has now been paused while the Deputy Prime Minister considers next steps.
And Donald Trump is speaking exclusively to GB News this evening when he sits down with Nigel Farage. The former president will give his take on issues including the coronation, the state of Scottish politics and his political future.
And we will be speaking to Nigel Farage in just a few minutes.
Are we?
Anything, yeah, about 8:15, we will have the man himself, fresh from meeting the president. So let us know your thoughts on any of the topics of the day.
Well,
GB
whose
News
thoughts I want to know
UK.
are Kinsey Schofield's, who's just said here just before we go to the sting. I say this, we give this email address and then we hit the sting. But before we do that, what's your view on our news as an alien from abroad coming in and seeing nurses' strikes and things that are going on and shotgun cartridges being thrown over the walls of Buckingham Palace? And
Oh, well, we do have the writers' strike happening in Los Angeles right now, so we're striking too. All the late shows are shut down. So that's going to affect what? What shows is that going to affect? You know, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, Steve somebody. I don't watch any of them.
But the dramas, any of the dramas, the Netflix series?
It will inevitably, but, you know, honestly, when what happened last night here at the Palace, I thought if it would have been in America, it would have been much worse. Unfortunately, our gun laws are scary.
Very true. Very, very true. Would be a whole different situation. Let's hit the sting.
Okay. So to our top story this morning, a man's been arrested after throwing suspected shotgun cartridges at the gates of Buckingham Palace.
Suspected shotgun cartridges? So were they like shotgun cartridges with nothing in them?
They didn't know what it was, apparently, at the time, which is why they had to carry out a controlled explosion.
Cartridges.
But they now know that they were shotgun cartridges.
Yes, so nothing suspected about it, right? So this guy comes up and he, well, goodness knows what's in this, but the police carried out a controlled explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of controlled explosion?
Yeah.
Huh?
Mm.
It can be quite sharp.
I
reckon the controlled explosion was louder than whatever was in the shotgun cartridges.
Well, don't take our word for what it sounds like, because our very own Jacob Rees-Mogg was trying to broadcast his programme. He was supposed to be right here where we are, outside Buckingham Palace. He was evacuated to a sort of grubby-looking porter cabin. They carried on from there, and you can listen to what happened next.
We're just getting the latest word from the Metropolitan Police, and I don't know what it is.
Evacuate now.
We're going to have to evacuate now.
The police are live with us now and telling us that we've got to evacuate even
I don't
from this
see why we could possibly
have
to move.
So I'm very sorry to say that it is good evening from me for the time being, as I think that was probably a controlled explosion in the background. That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, Jacob Rees-Mogg and Michael Cole there. Michael Cole testified to us earlier that Jacob Rees-Mogg was a great person under pressure.
Yeah, cool head. It's not easy to carry on broadcasting when you don't really know what's going on outside, and to hear something like that, probably very alarming. Listen, earlier, the former head of National Counter-Terrorism Security here in the UK, Chris Phillips, told us that the incident would put security forces now on high alert.
The fact that it was blown up was simply just to make sure that there was no proper detonated device inside them. But, you know, you can expect lots and lots of police officers there, and that will gradually build up as the week goes on. And, of course, police will respond. And the fact that this guy was carrying a knife does cause some cause for concern. But, of course, there are so many people out there, Eamonn, that want to get on the telly, that want to get themselves famous, that want to do something stupid, that would just love to mess up this whole week.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I just want to mention a story, an anecdote of going back 1978, 79. Gloria Hunniford.
Yeah, wonderful woman.
National institution. Broadcasting for Radio Ulster, and her show was called A Taste of Honey.
Ah,
nice title, yeah. Anyway, the IRA plant this massive car bomb outside the BBC, and they evacuate the BBC except for two people, a sound engineer and Gloria Hunniford. Gloria said, I'm not going out, I'm staying here. And she continued to broadcast, and the bomb goes off. Massive destruction at the BBC. But Gloria, that's why, you know what I always say, that they carved her from rock. You know, absolutely incredible. So she did that and lived to tell the tale, thankfully. But we're going to speak to a bodyguard now who is used to protecting those in the public eye, and he's Simon Newton with all of this. Simon, there's a noticeable change in atmosphere, it has to be said, after what happened last night, and not surprisingly, security much tighter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's coming out certainly this morning that it was quite unfortunate last night, and due to the amount of police officers that have already been around the palace for the last few days, in fact, it was stamped on very quickly. Obviously, they did mention it wasn't terror-related and it's connected to mental health, but unfortunately, due to these big kind of events what come around, particularly in the city and around London, it does attract these people sometimes.
Simon, how would you sum up the responsibility for the security forces in keeping everyone safe? I mean, what a dichotomy to have, you know, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people lining the streets, and also to balance that with keeping it a secure environment. What a tough balance.
Yeah, I mean, it's something in this country, the security forces, you know, and the police forces across the whole of the country actually are very good at doing. There is a little bit on events the size of what's going to be happening at the weekend. There is a little bit of luck what goes with that. But ultimately, it'll be saturated with visible security and non-visible security. And I just think that any possible precaution what can be taken over the weekend, planning, preparation, everything's been done 110% to keep it as safe as possible for everyone attending.
And it's a family occasion, isn't it? There will be lots of young children here, people of all ages, young and old, gathered, which what is ultimately a celebration, and it only takes one or two people to really spoil that. Eamonn was making the point earlier that it's down to all of us as well to use our eyes and ears, to keep an eye out for any strange behaviour. But as a professional, what sort of things would you be looking out for if you were in a big crowd like that? And give some tips, if you will, to people if they are heading here for Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with that amount of people, it's difficult to, at times to see particularly suspicious behaviour, especially if you're just a member of the public who's maybe not used to identifying that. But certainly things like, you know, lone baggage left around, what maybe looks like maybe unattended, certainly show a police officer, but it's there. Just general awareness of if you see anyone even taking things out of their pockets so they shouldn't be, just report anything you think, even if you're concerned and it turns out to be nothing. It doesn't matter, you know. You should always just speak up. But it's important just for everyone, the amount of people there at the weekend, everyone can keep their eyes and ears open.
Yeah, and we're just looking at police officers on the ground there. They've been drawn in from all around the country, from so many different forces around the land. Is there a danger then that this leaves on Coronation Day, Coronation weekend, other big targets more exposed?
Well, we've done this many times before on big occasions in London where the various different police forces from up and down the UK get drafted in for the weekend to cover these size of events. And I don't believe there's been much previous issue with that working. In fact, I think it probably works very well. So hopefully I'd like to say not.
OK. Simon, really appreciate your take on things, and very nice throne you have as well.
I was thinking that.
Yourself, yes. Very, very nice monarchical throne.
Yeah,
very nice
good.
indeed.
On theme. We like it.
All you need's a crown. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Right, you saw a glimpse of her a little bit earlier. We're going to speak now to the royal and showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield, who's swapped LA for chilly London. But you're absolutely soaking it all up, aren't you?
Oh,
and goodness me, coronation fever in full swing.
Yes, and you know, I do think it's unfortunate that this has happened, because you don't want people to miss history because they fear that something else could take place. And you know, I believe you had said it earlier, there is an incredible presence security-wise here. It was a little bit more difficult to get through the gates this morning. I do feel especially safe today, and I do hope that everybody comes out to see this incredible moment that you might not see again in your lifetime.
Kinsey, you're not only a commentator, you're not only a reporter, but you are a royalist as well.
I am.
And anyone who just, you know, you just have to look at her Instagram account or Twitter account and you can see that personified there. Why? Why are you such a fan of the royals?
The tradition, I think there's so much romance about the choreography, the uniforms. You know, I love the history and the way that the cycles happen. You look at Wallace and Edward, you can look at Harry and Meghan. Things continue to happen and repeat, and I just am so fascinated by that.
The history is incredible. The King will be the 40th British monarch crowned in Westminster Abbey since William the Conqueror in 1066, and he'll be the oldest ever new monarch. And when you think about that, it really does make you pause for a moment and realise what a historic event we are all part of.
And I don't think that there's any way that we won't be able to compare it to that beautiful young woman, his mother, her coronation day. I think that's going to be interesting to compare, but I also come from I'm a spiritual background. I look forward to seeing all of the aspects of religion and spirituality through the coronation. And I love knowing that King Charles is sincerely a spiritual individual and that this likely means a lot to him.
Yeah, he's a very religious man, and he will have that moment just between him and God when he will go behind into a private area and have that sacred moment.
Well, from spirits, let's talk about the spectre not at the feast. Meghan.
Oh, he's so bad.
Right, so bad but so right. Come on. What do we reckon she's going to do to draw attention to her this week, if anything?
Well, you know, it is Archie's birthday. We might be able to see a new photo of Archie. And
have we seen any photos of Archie?
Not since the Netflix special, so it would be a big deal if we actually saw Archie. I anticipate that one of her Hollywood friends, is it Ellen DeGeneres, Kris Jenner, or, you know, Serena Williams, will they post a video from the birthday party? Something could potentially come up on Coronation Day or around the coronation.
They should take a leaf out of the, I was going to say the Cambridges, but they are the Waleses now, out of their playbook and publish a picture the night before so as not to upstage on Coronation Day. So perhaps on Friday,
well,
the Sussexes could publish a birthday photograph.
She never gets her hands dirty. The photographer would post it, and that's typically what happens. The photographer or a friend posts it so that she's not to blame.
Okay, well, there we go.
But it could be. And you know what? We're all curious to see what they look like.
Yes, yeah, King's grandson.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Kinsey, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. With the time at 14 minutes past 8, let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. And NHS nurses in England are threatening to return to the picket line despite ministers agreeing a new pay deal for the majority of staff within certain other unions. The Royal College of Nurses, Pat Cullen, said they remained in a formal dispute with the government.
More than 7 million households will receive a £301 cost of living payment by the end of today. The money is part of a package of government support announced to tackle the cost of living in 2023-24.
Royal Mail has unveiled 4 specially decorated postboxes to mark the upcoming coronation. The boxes in London, Edinburgh, Cardiff and Hillsborough display the occasion's official emblem.
Now, the King and Queen's coronation will be celebrated across the country, but the lead-up hasn't been without controversy.
Months of planning and secret rehearsals are expected to mitigate any last-minute hurdles, but are some problems simply out of the King's control? Well, our royal correspondent Cameron Walker has more on this.
Not my king! Not my king! Not my king! Not my king!
The Duke of Sussex will attend the coronation of King Charles, his father, but the Duchess of Sussex will not.
Practice makes perfect, but secret rehearsals can only smooth out certain snags. His Majesty's coronation is a once-in-a-lifetime event for him, and officials will be doing everything possible to make sure nothing overshadows the King's big day.
We've now seen eggs thrown at the King. I don't think in her long reign we ever saw an egg thrown at the Queen, which demonstrates to me that the support for the Queen was not the same as support for the monarchy. The Queen commanded support in her own person.
Last month, Buckingham Palace took the unusual step to confirm Prince Harry would be attending the coronation, perhaps in an attempt to avoid further speculation about family feuds. It was only January when Harry's newly released memoir branded the Queen Consort a villain, an accusation which bothered and hurt Her Majesty, according to a friend, but she chose to rise above it. Out of the media spotlight, Meghan will be staying behind in California with the 2 children. It's understood the Duchess wants to spend her son's birthday with him, which falls on the day of the coronation. Critics have branded the decision a snub, however, pointing to Harry and Meghan's wedding, where Charles walked his new daughter-in-law down the aisle.
I've lived every girl's dream.
While some have turned down their invitation, others didn't even get one. The Duchess of York, Prince Andrew's former wife, has confirmed she didn't make the cut. It's also emerged that Lady Pamela Hicks, a bridesmaid and former lady-in-waiting to the late Queen, has not received an invite. The King has sent his great love and apologies to her.
We want an election, not a coronation.
Anti-monarchy protests are also on the rise. Republic, the campaign group calling to replace the monarchy with an elected head of state, is hoping for up to 1,000 people protesting along the procession route. Organisers expect their plans to be noisy, but peaceful.
We'll be making some noise, there'll be a bit of a party atmosphere, and try and engage with the people around us, and keep it fairly light-hearted, and make sure that when the procession goes past, we are unmissable.
There are fears, however, that eco-extremists could cause chaos. The Mail on Sunday reports a plot to use rape alarms to spook the King's horses, a stunt that could cause serious injuries or even death, according to a former Grenadier Guard. For the coronation to be a success, the great British public have to be on side. More than half of people surveyed think the coronation should not be funded by the government, according to a recent YouGov poll. A majority of Brits, however, are in favour of keeping the monarchy. The challenge for the institution is making a 1,000-year-old tradition relevant to the 21st century. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Now, we're going to talk about ex-American President Donald Trump. He's in Scotland at the moment, and he's checking up on his golf courses. He's going to then head to Ireland to do the same there. And today, the former president will sit down with Nigel Farage for a world-exclusive interview here on GB News.
And Nigel joins us this morning from Trump Turnberry. Good morning to you, Nigel. Gosh, what are you going to start with? I mean, so much to talk about. It's been a few years since Donald Trump's been in the UK, last time for a state visit in 2019.
Well, that's right.
Oh dear, I think that's...
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, I think he's speaking like a Dalek.
It's a tease. It's teasing us with what he's going to be talking to President Trump about this evening. What I can tell you is we will 100% have the audio sorted for that interview. We'll see if we can sort out that line.
What was Nigel wearing there? Was that a prisoner's outfit or something?
This was his relaxed, his civvies. Is in his civvies. I've actually never seen him out of his sort of suit or his...
shirt and tie and all that sort of thing. What we're going to do, we're going to try and kick the machinery that he's plugged into and see if we can get it sorted out. And then we'll probably visit Wrexham or talk about Wrexham.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds, they just can't do any wrong, can they?
Well, they went well yet, but they went on a parade around the town last night to celebrate their promotion. And we're going to be talking about that and lots more right after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state. Well, Benjamin,
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, it's all happening here on this breakfast show here on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. And still to come today. Who's shouting?
Someone's on the phone, don't worry.
It's always the Australians next door. They're always big-mouthed.
Right, at 8:45, we will be speaking to some replicates. These are the women who spend thousands of pounds to dress like the Princess of Wales.
What, like she literally goes and buys clothes that are like
The exact outfit
Catherine's?
they try to replicate.
You'd love to do that, wouldn't
I know,
you?
but
Yeah. Well, well, I mean, she dresses like her, but in the hope of looking like her and passing as her.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're delusional like that too.
Oh, stop it.
But you are.
I don't think I look like her. I just admire her from afar.
You would buy her clothes if
Yeah.
she brought out a range.
Yeah.
Okay. 9:15, we're speaking to the Minister for Security, Tom Tugendhat, as the government prepares to launch its national fraud strategy. What are they going to do about that? How's that going to work? Let us know what you think. Get in touch the usual ways.
Right, a little bit earlier on in the programme, we were trying to connect to Nigel Farage. He is sitting down with President Donald Trump this evening.
He's dressed like a wasp the last time we saw him, wasn't he? Nigel, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
There he is. Very good man. Good to see. We're so... None of us are used to seeing you outside a shirt and tie. That's why we're
quite disconcerting.
Very disconcerting.
Well, that's because I've been out walking the course this morning. I've been out to the famous Turnberry Lighthouse, getting a feel for the place. It is, I've got to tell you, it's absolutely beautiful here. And it's also now rated as the #1 golf course in Europe. And this fascinates me because Donald Trump's mother, of course, came from the Western Isles. He himself feels a very strong affinity for Scotland. I mean, he really does. And one of the sort of fascinating things to me is when you own somewhere as magnificent as this, when you're a golf fanatic, why at 76 do you want to throw yourself back into a presidential election campaign when life could be much happier spending more time at Turnberry?
Very good question, and I assume you'll be putting that to him.
Yeah, absolutely, Eamonn. I want to find out, more about his Scottishness, but also, he had a very tough 4 years. The Russia hoax, the impeachments. Now you've got all these legal cases, court cases. Be interesting to see just how strong his fighting spirit still is. He is an extraordinary human being. You can like him, you can dislike him, you can agree with him, disagree with him, but he is an absolute force of nature. But is he really, really, really prepared for the battle ahead? And they're the kind of questions that I want to ask. And sometimes I think with this figure, media tends to be either all in support or all against. I want to try and find out more about him as a person, what his motivations are, why he's doing all of this. Because frankly, if he wasn't running, he would not have appeared in that New York courtroom the other week. It's as simple as that.
And of course, it's coronation fever right across the UK. We know he's a royalist. He very much enjoyed meeting Her Majesty the Queen when he was here for a state visit in 2019. So will you be talking much about that today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I met him about an hour and a half after he'd seen the Queen on that state visit, and he was like an excited teenager. It meant so much to him, and his mother was a dedicated royalist. Now, he has very strong views on Meghan and Harry, so I'll be asking a little bit about that. And of course, you know, he has met Charles and spent time with Charles, and I know he likes Charles as a person. He may not necessarily agree with all of Charles's priorities, but yeah, I'll be asking him two things really. One, if he was president, would he have attended the coronation? Because Joe Biden has decided to send the First Lady in his place. And secondly, I'll be asking him to give a message for the King and Queen on their coronation day.
Right. And what time will we see all this, Nigel?
I'll be meeting him this afternoon. Well, they'll be going out on the buggies around the golf course, and he's sort of showing off Turnberry to me. And it'll be on tonight between 7 and 8 o'clock, exclusively and only here on GB News, the People's Channel.
Just tell me this. Yeah, just tell me this before we let you go, Nigel. Are you any good at golf?
I was 4 handicap, but it was a very, very long time ago. So I was quite a good golfer. And he did say to me yesterday, come on, get your shoes on. We're teeing off at 9. But I haven't played for years. And I think I might have been a bit of a fool of myself.
Fair enough.
Nigel, I lost more balls than I ever did in my whole life on any course playing Turnberry. Once you go off the fairway, the elephant grass at either side, unless you have a spotter looking for your ball, it is impossible. It is a beautiful, wild course, affected by the wind coming in off the sea there. You can see Ailsa Craig, you can see Northern Ireland from there as well. It's stunning, as you say, and I was locked up in the hotel for 2 days during a storm one time. Had to seek refuge.
Oh, really?
And we went to Turnberry because we were on our way to the ferry, and it was the only hotel that would take our dog. And so we actually, the storm was horrendous.
Well, it sounds like you've made the right decision there, Nigel, then, to swerve that with the President. But we very much look forward to that interview, and we'll be tuning in for that world exclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Really appreciate your time this morning. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Right, on the subject of swinging, somebody who can swing. I don't know if he can swing. Are you a swinger, Paul Coit? Oh, for some reason, does that mean Paul Coit's not there?
See, we got Nigel, but we lost Paul in the process. I think we just need to bear with. Well, listen, I tell you what, we have a few views that have come in on a whole range of subjects that we've been discussing this morning, from vaping to cold calling. Australia has imposed this ban on vaping. We're talking about whether or not it might happen here. Bob in Sheffield says, this ban on vaping in Australia is surely at odds with our NHS, who are prescribing them as an aid to stopping smoking. Sue in Lincolnshire says perhaps vaping could be replaced by dummies, and I have heard a few people saying that vaping is like a dummy for adults, and that, you know, this is constantly having this thing in your mouth. And Daniel says,
bring me over
my girlfriend vapes and can't give it up. Vapes all day. It's more addictive than tobacco, and of course that is the big problem there. What are you up to now?
I'm going to show you this, right? Right, so we were just keeping the sugar levels up with these jelly babies.
I was wondering why you've got so naughty.
But can somebody explain to me why, when I was young, jelly babies used to have bits and pieces on them?
Did they?
Moulded,
Excuse me, I just went straight in there.
It was our imagination as children, they did anyway. But why are jelly babies dusted? Why are they dusted in sort of icing sugar or...
Because it's pretty.
Well, get your hands all...
Don't you dare.
Well, I can't wipe it on my, because it's all
Put it on
dark.
Black. Look. Right, listen, I believe Paul Coit is there. We had enough of your jelly babies. Paul Coit.
Thanks, Charlotte.
I think it's because
Good morning.
Then they don't
look,
stick,
he's got a halo around his head.
Look at this. How about that? I'm perfectly positioned. I think the dusting is surely so they don't stick in the bag, right? So when you pick up the jelly baby, then you're not all stuck.
Yes.
It slips, and then you've got a nice,
so they
nice
don't
surface.
Stick together in the bag. We can't.
That's
really
the reason I'm here, and also
we can't hear what you're saying. But anyway, nobody's talking rubbish. It's talking rubbish. They don't dust wine gums.
Oh, maybe.
They don't dust fruit pastels,
No,
do
well,
they?
I like
they
this
don't dust
theory.
jelly tots.
Let's talk about the sport, though.
Well, these are the important things in life, where he's talking nonsense.
Maybe.
And you're deliberately swallowing it.
Let's talk about the Premier League, Paul. 3-1 Arsenal-Chelsea.
I tell you
I
also,
will, always.
you mentioned the golf, though, but Nigel Farage is a 4 handicap.
We can't
that's
hear
an
him.
incredible golfer. And he said he won't go out there and play because he might make it a fool of himself. If you've ever been a 4 handicap, that means you're 4 shots off being a professional golfer. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive, don't you think?
Yeah, who was saying that? Was that
What's he
Nigel?
talking about? Was this? What's he talking
Yeah,
about?
so
golf?
you're saying Nigel's pretty darn good at
You asked
golf.
him a
He should
question
get out
about
there.
football, and he answered about golf.
Yes, well, he was just linking it to our world exclusive that we were just teasing a moment ago. I see what you're doing, Paul, and I like it.
I'm sorry.
But
I'm
anyway,
sorry.
we can hear what you're saying now.
You won't like
the jelly
things.
babies has upset me. OK, I'll tell you about the football. It was a huge game yesterday. So Arsenal 3, Chelsea 1. We could talk about how great Arsenal were, but also it's really how poor Chelsea were. I mean, Chelsea really not at the races at all. Mikel Arteta, so the Arsenal manager, he's saying that the title is not over. There's Frank Lampard. Now, Frank has coming in as Chelsea interim manager. He's lost his last 10 games. It's the first time a manager has actually looked after a club and lost the first 10 games since 1988. He's won 3 games in the last 28. So it's pretty safe to say that poor Frank is not going to get the job full-time. And I've got to say, I feel sorry for him because the players were so bad against Arsenal yesterday. It's almost like the Chelsea team have just given up. So Frank's going to do the best that he can, try and talk them into playing. He's going to give them everything, and he loves the club. But whether the actual players that play for them do, I think, is a different question altogether, because I think they're letting him down very badly. But Arsenal they're still in the title hunt at the moment, and we've got Arsenal on 78 points. 34 they've played, but Manchester City will play tonight. They've still got 2 games in hand, and they're on 76 points. So Man City have got West Ham tonight, and then we've got Liverpool, who are going to be playing Fulham. So that's how we look at the moment from what happened yesterday.
Yeah, Jurgen Klopp charged by the FA about after his comments about the referee Paul Tierney as well. I want to talk about FIFA. Here's an interesting illusion that is applied by, I think, particularly the BBC, and that is that women's football is popular. I'd like to see women's football popular, but FIFA have now come out and basically said, well, we've got the Women's World Cup, and nobody wants to buy it or pay a proper price for it. Now, my point about this is that, sadly, there is not the same commercial market for women's football as there is for men's football. So what are FIFA saying about all of this?
Well, obviously FIFA, we know how FIFA work, and we know FIFA love their money. They're saying they're all about the growth of the game. They love football. There's Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president. So the World Cup is happening in the summer. It's in Australia and New Zealand. And so Gianni Infantino has now threatened a TV blackout of the Women's World Cup. And that's in the UK and Europe, like you say, purely because they're not paying enough money. He wants more money. Now, he's not saying that it's FIFA that are going to be not making the money. I mean, he's blaming everybody else, and these are the words that he used. He said, this is a slap in the face of all great FIFA Women's World Cup players. And indeed, not only that, all women worldwide. So he's actually blaming the broadcasters for disrespecting women and disrespecting women's footballers for not paying enough for the World Cup, whereas all they're doing is actually saying, well, you give us a decent price. Of course we want to screen the World Cup around Europe, but Gianni is trying to broker it by blaming them and saying that they're disrespecting women, which really is a nonsense. I know what you're saying, Eamonn, about popularity. Of course it's not as popular as the men's football, but, you know, this is still going to be a very, very big tournament, and also huge for England as well.
And it's important. It's important. Wrexham, just finished with scenes from Wrexham last night. There was the parade around the town last night, and very joyous and very happy everyone was.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember speaking to people from Wrexham about 2 years ago when the word was happening that we had Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney were going to actually buy the club, and they were unsure about it. You know, there's a long history of such an old club, but it's worked out extremely well, as we know. They've been promoted now. They're going into the Football League. They're going to League Two. I mean, look at the crowds there. I mean, the whole of Wrexham, it looks like the whole of Wales is out there. So there's the 2 buses. The women's team have been promoted as well. So it's a great success story. They're being asked, what's the chances of going to the Premier League? They say, why not? But That is going to be very, very difficult. But on to the Football League next year. A very happy Wrexham, and it's a lovely, lovely story which everybody is enjoying. The whole of America is buying, the whole of Hollywood's buying into it. So who knows how far they can go. Premier League, though, is going to be a bit tougher.
And Isabel's buying into it as well.
I know,
so everybody's very joyous about that.
I know.
Thank you, my friend. Nice talking to you. See you again tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed. So, stay with us and we'll be discussing why a meat and dairy diet could be healthier than a vegan one.
Yes, we'll be going through the papers with Sean McDonald and Emily Carver after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's go through the newspapers. This morning we're joined by Emily Carver and Sean McDonald. They have been doing their bit. We say hello to them, and we'll talk about food, Emily. In the Telegraph, plant-based foods are less healthy than a diet of meat, eggs and milk. Oh, for goodness sake, more conflicting advice.
I know, this won't be good news to the very many vegans who come on GB News to discuss how great a plant-based diet is. But yes, this is a report from the UN. They've looked into 500 scientific papers, so they've done a big bit of research here, and they conclude that actually you're better off with a bit of meat and milk in your diet. They say it's extremely difficult for people to get everything they need from a vegan diet, which of course means you can't even eat eggs or anything that's produced by an animal. They say it's possible, but you have to be extremely, extremely cautious. And for pregnant women, when they're lactating, for adolescents, for older people, it can be quite dangerous just to live off a vegan diet. So there you go. Caution if you're considering a vegan diet.
Sean, you can't do right for doing wrong, can you? I mean, it sounds healthier, we're led to believe it's healthier, but now this new evidence, well, it would make you think again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much of the opinion that balance is key. It's good to eat from all the food groups. I think to isolate or to completely restrict yourself from any one source of whether it's energy or nutrition is probably quite damaging, and that even goes for enjoying the things that maybe would be deemed as not so healthy. As Billy Connolly says, eat less, move more, and maybe think about just having that nice balance.
Wise advice. Are you very thoughtful about what you eat, Emily, or do you wish you were?
I try to eat healthily, but I am partial to a late-night snack, which is usually something salty like crisps or a bit of cheese, but it's not terrible. I'm in decent shape, I'd say, but yes, I could always do more. I could always cut down on the crisps. That's my vice.
OK, but this study firmly saying plant-based foods, it's going to be very, very hard to get everything you need from just that sort of eating if you're a vegan.
Yes, exactly, and in particular, things like iron and vitamin B12. Now, you can get supplements for these things. They are available, but a lot of people who just start a vegan diet may not have all these extras that you get from shops. They can be quite expensive. You may not get the balance completely right. And as I said, for these crucial points in someone's life, it is very, very important that they get all their protein, all their iron, all their B12. So, yes, I don't think they're saying no one should be vegan, but they are saying that there may be risks to your health.
Yeah. Sean, we go to the Mirror, BP oil. We talked about this yesterday. The Labour Party wants to introduce more windfall taxes on the oil companies. What's going on in BP's world?
Yeah, so BP, they've been condemned for raking in a grotesque £511 a second in profits. They've made £4 billion in just 3 months, adding to their £23.4 billion haul last year amid Russia's war in Ukraine. And Keir Starmer is leading the calls for an effective windfall tax to be able to pass that on to people so that they can freeze council tax. He has sort of taken a bit of a softer approach in that he said he's glad that BP and Shell are able to make large profits so that it can be reinvested, but given the gargantuan amounts that they are earning, that should be sort of seized more in the style of Norway, who are taking billions and billions more each year. I would tend to agree with him. I think it is very much opportunistic profiteering. And yeah, I would be stepping in. Whether the Conservative government will do that remains to be seen. I wouldn't be so hopeful.
May I just jump in just to say that the Conservative government have very much stepped in when it comes to profits. Profits on oil and gas companies are already taxed at 75%. I think Labour need to really ask the question, or answer the question, how much do they think they should be taxed? 76%, 85%, 99%, 100%, 110%? What is it? We need oil and gas. We're going to need oil and gas for quite a number of years going forward. So we don't want these companies to move elsewhere.
I think when you're tapping into natural resources, though, that are part of the UK, then that should be the say of the UK. I mean, I don't want to stifle sort of commercial advancement. I don't want to stifle energy extraction that we need, but I just think, when we're talking of tens of billions more, then the UK should be stepping in. That's ours. And I find it a bit unusual when people are so quick to defend oil companies. Like, the money's not going into your pocket. I mean, if it is, then I'll be looking for a loan off you.
But 75% tax rate is extraordinarily high, it has to be said.
But all that oil and petrol goes into cars. And Emily, here's a story in the Times which I think is totally avoidable. It's been highlighted by the Liberal Democrat Party, and they're saying there's an epidemic in car thefts. There's 100,000 car thefts completely unsolved. There's no will to solve them.
Absolutely.
And why I think this is completely unnecessary, in this day and age, Emily, it is so easy to fit or to insist on a car having a tracker, a hidden tracker somewhere on it. So it doesn't have to be this way.
Yes, I think people hope for the best. Car owners hope for the best. They don't assume that their car is going to be stolen. But the reason why I chose this story is because my parents, I think they've had 2 cars stolen in the space of a couple of years, just from outside their drive. They've now got one of those things that you put on the steering wheel so you can't actually get out. But it's those keys that open the door when you get close. I think these criminals have a way of getting in there and opening them up and then driving them away. But yes, 100,000 car thefts gone unsolved. This is quite a good thing for the Liberal Democrats to point out, because it does put the government in a tricky position. Why aren't you dealing with this, is what they're asking.
Yeah, and look, Emily, I've had the same situation with my folks. They've had a car stolen, but, you know, the way the Lib Dems describe this as going unsolved, I'd go further and say not even attended by the police. I mean, my parents presented the police with CCTV, they had everything, and the police were not interested. They said, it'll probably be already on a boat out of the country already.
Oh yeah, and meanwhile, your insurance premiums go up because the insurance brokers assume you're going to get it nicked again.
But my point is that your insurance should be on the condition that you have a tracker fitted to your car, and surely that makes the thieves work harder and it makes your car safer, because as Emily was saying and you were saying about your parents, the cars were stolen from outside their own front doors, in their own driveways. At times as well. Guys, I think we've got to say goodbye to you, because we've got a lady who likes to dress up as the Princess of Wales to talk to now. Thank you both very much.
Yeah,
and it's not you I'm talking about.
Stop it. I wish. But look, lots of people wish. Zakia Frumark also wishes that she was Kate. She joins us from Germany. So inspired by Kate's style, you go out and buy everything she's ever seen in.
Yes. Good morning, Great Britain.
Good morning.
Good morning. What is it about Kate, the Princess of Wales, that captured your imagination?
I think the key moment was when I was in my sweet 16 years, and I saw the official engagement photo of William and Kate, and I immediately fell in love with her because I really, really love that blue dark dress.
And you look very well in it. Saskia, what is your technique? What is your plan when you see an outfit that you really like? And I mean, she looks well in everything. It's almost as if you're going to have to buy everything that she has. How do you track down the actual clothes?
There is a big community on Instagram. There are accounts which are specialized on finding her clothes, and they are posting the links to the online shops, and every replicate, that's how we name us, can buy her clothes, and us as well.
And there's quite a community of these so-called replicates, aren't there, of people who aspire to be like Kate, copycat hairdos, copycat wardrobes. It's not a cheap hobby, though. She's got quite an array of expensive clothes and jewels, I'd imagine, as well.
Oh, it isn't quite expensive, but I say other collect coins, I collect clothes, royal clothes, and yes, that's my passion for years, so I love that.
But Saskia, does anyone say, you go to all this trouble, you personally will feel very good dressing as Kate, but do you get people, do you get friends, do you get work colleagues who say to you, I thought it was Kate, Princess of Wales there, but it's not, it's Saskia?
No, that don't happen in the past, but when my family come to visit me and say, "Oh, I like your earrings," they say, "Oh, that must be Kate, right?" So they know my hobby and they know everything that I wear is Kate. Yes.
Oh, it's very sweet. What do you think of Princess Charlotte? Do you think she's a mini cutout of her mummy?
Yes, but I think she looks more like a little William at the moment. And it's a little bit crazy, but I also buy Charlotte's clothes for maybe a little future mini Saskia.
Oh, really? Wow, that is commitment. There you go.
Will you be watching the coronation this week?
Yes, I will watch it on TV with my best friend, and we will have a little tea party here. So as you can see, the bunting is up, the decoration is up, and yes, we will celebrate it very relaxed, but with cheer and full of celebration for our new king.
Well, live from Buckingham Palace, Saskia Frumark, lovely to meet you. Thank you very much indeed. And being a replicate, and there's a big community of replicates, people who dress like Kate. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, stay with us. We're going to have more for you on the lockdown of Buckingham Palace last night. That was following a controlled explosion. But first, here's your forecast with Alex Deakin.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Good morning. Another fine day for most today, perhaps a bit brighter than yesterday. A better chance of seeing a little bit more in the way of blue sky. High pressure is dominating our weather, but low pressure is trying to edge in, and as a result the isobars are squeezing together, hence why the breeze will be picking up. But still, by and large, a fine day today. Not completely dry. There are a few showers through the morning, just working their way up the western side of Scotland. Elsewhere, though, as I said, most places generally dry. Some hazy sunshine coming through, so a brighter day for most compared to yesterday. The breeze picking up, particularly in the south. But here, with some sunshine, temperatures are likely to get up to the high teens, 17, maybe 18 Celsius. A little cooler in the east, but the east coast itself will be a little bit warmer than yesterday as the winds slightly switch direction. We'll see the outbreaks of rain continuing to work across northern Scotland this evening. Nothing too heavy, but just a bit damp here, that rain trickling up towards Orkney. For most, it will be a dry night with clear spells, and again, temperatures are likely to drop down into single figures. So a slightly fresh start to Thursday, particularly with the breeze, which will continue to strengthen. Quite a blustery day in places to come tomorrow, particularly so in the west with these easterly winds. They'll also be bringing a chill back to these eastern coasts. In the southwest, we'll see some outbreaks of rain pushing up during tomorrow morning, spreading through Devon, Cornwall, Somerset, and eventually some of those outbreaks of rain will work into southern and then mid-Wales. Still some patchy rain across the Northern Isles, but for most it'll be another fine bright day tomorrow. That easterly wind, though, as I said, bringing a chill to the east coast. Get out of the breeze and the sunny spells. We could see temperatures in the mid or even high teens. The long weekends, well, we are going to see some heavy showers, but there'll be dry and bright spells, and it'll still feel pretty warm when the sun's out.
The Coronation is an event that has remained virtually unchanged for 1,000 years.
And we invite you to join us here on GB News for this historic event.
All next week, we'll be talking to you in towns and cities across the country.
Building up to the main event on Saturday.
From pageantry at the palace to unearthing the history of this ancient ritual.
Come celebrate with us.
The Coronation of King Charles III, Saturday, May the 6th. Join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News, we're starting the conversation and having the debate that the establishment won't have.
No one will be cancelled.
Join me at 4 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday. We'll be discussing all the big topics of the weekend.
Oh, get cracking!
Always honest, always fun. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Yeah,
more could you want?
Thank you. A controlled explosion at Buckingham Palace after a man's arrested for throwing shotgun cartridges at the gates.
More on that very, very shortly as we come live from the Palace this morning. The time is 9 o'clock on this Wednesday, the 3rd of May.
This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Buckingham Palace was put into lockdown last night after a man threw shotgun cartridges into the grounds. The Palace has confirmed neither the King nor the Queen Consort were there during the incident.
Cold calling is to be banned under new government plans to tackle scams. The Prime Minister says the strategy, which also includes the creation of a new national fraud squad, will take the fight to the fraudsters. We'll speak to Security Minister Tom Tugendhat in the next half an hour.
More than 1 million NHS staff will see a 5% wage increase after multiple health unions voted to accept the government's deal. However, Unite and the Royal College of Nursing rejected the offer, prompting fears of further walkouts.
Former Partygate investigator Sue Gray is said to be refusing to cooperate with an investigation into her talks with the Labour Party. The Cabinet Office inquiry has been paused now while the Deputy Prime Minister considers next steps. We'll be speaking to Labour for their thoughts on the matter in just a moment.
And Donald Trump is speaking exclusively to GB News this evening when he sits down with Nigel Farage. The former president will give his take on issues including the coronation, the state of Scottish politics and his political future.
And we love to hear from you throughout the course of the programme. This is, of course, the People's Channel. Send those thoughts to gbviews@gbnews.uk and don't forget, let us know where you're watching and listening from.
So we're at the scene, the epicentre of the action this morning. Our top story is that a man has been arrested after throwing what have now been identified as shotgun cartridges at the gates of Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, well, as you might expect, there was serious concern last night. The area was locked down and a precautionary controlled explosion was carried out, which was heard live on GB News. Let's just set the scene for you, because Jacob Rees-Mogg was sitting right here where we are. His programme then had to be moved into a porter cabin. They continued to broadcast from there, and have a listen to what happened next.
We're just getting the latest word from the Metropolitan Police, and I don't know what it is.
Evacuate now.
We're going to have to evacuate now.
The police are live with us now and are telling us that we've got to evacuate even
I don't see why we could possibly have to move.
So I'm very sorry to say that it is good evening for me for the time being, as I think that was probably a controlled explosion in the background. That's what it sounded like to me.
Gosh.
Well, Jacob had to pull the plug on his programme then at that stage, and also in the shot there, former royal correspondent Michael Cole, whose whole idea was to go into the porter cabin in the first place. Michael, good morning to you. Glad you've survived what went on last night. So explain the scene. You were originally broadcasting from where we are now.
Absolutely. The first thing we knew was that they cleared the road behind this little tented village where we're all living for the next few days. And quite frankly, I thought it was maybe because the King was coming to inspect the media, you know your enemy sort of thing. Because the Queen always used to come and meet the media at Commonwealth Heads of Government meetings. But no, they said to us, you're not allowed to walk on this road, and now you're going to have to leave your pavilion and go to the little porter cabin that we have in the woods here. And the only good thing I did that day was I said to the very talented camera crew we had here, I said, well, can you bring one of the cameras? Can we do the show right here? Rather like, Mickey Rooney and in the old days on the with Judy Garland. And they said, yeah, sure. And within 5 minutes, or less than 5 minutes, without any fuss at all, we were up and running with sound and picture. And then, for some unknown reason, they came in, and bear in mind that we'd never been given any reason. We didn't know what was going on, and we weren't told. And they said, no, you've got to evacuate. We didn't know, and I said, well, all we've got at the moment is rumours. I said, unless we have a policewoman or a policeman here to tell us to evacuate, my job is to carry on broadcasting, and I don't like to be interfered with when I'm going about my lawful occasions. And I did point out that we're invited here, and in fact we pay quite a big rent to be here, and we were on air live at the time. Anyway, we had to evacuate, and we went outside the main gates, outside the zone, and we set up yet again. Full credit to the camera crew. They were very versatile in how they managed to make the link back to the studio in Paddington. And we were on air, and actually Jacob Rees-Mogg, who I think did extraordinarily well, he's not a broadcaster like we are, he ad-libbed brilliantly, he found the right words, and he was cool under fire. And we actually talked about the coronation, which is actually what we're here to do. So it was a nasty little incident, nobody was hurt. And in the words of the Rolling Stones, it's all over now.
Yeah, it's all over, and the show must go on. And look, just a bit of a reminder, I suppose, of what can go wrong. But fingers crossed, everybody will be even tighter. Security, we noticed, was tighter today, wasn't it? Even than yesterday, which was tighter than for the Queen's funeral. But I want to ask you, whilst we've got you, Michael, about Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, doing a rare interview yesterday, and she was sort of typically, characteristically understated. But she did make one shot across the bow to her brother.
Yeah, she's very forthright, and I think it was, as you say, a nautical term, shot across the bow. She's more or less saying, hey, I'm still here. When they were kids, they didn't get on terribly well, Anne and Charles, because Anne was very much her father's favourite, and Charles picked up on that. They get on very well these days. But she was saying, well, it's all right for you to talk about slimming down the royal family, but that puts more weight on us, the other working royals, because, of course, Her Majesty the Queen is dead, very sadly. The Duke of Edinburgh has gone. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have decamped to California for their own reasons. And, of course, Prince Andrew is hors de combat. He's not taking part. And so she was saying, yes, it's more work on us. But I think, and I must say, and I was not always the greatest fan when he was Prince of Wales, I think the King has not put a foot wrong since he became King on September the 8th. Not a foot wrong, and I think his instinct is right to slim down the royal family to the direct line of succession. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, then Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. And we're never ever going to see again on the balcony of that building behind us, often known as the biggest council house in Britain, 20 or 30 members of the royal family. It will be just the core. And I think in a way the king is channeling, consciously or unconsciously, his father, King George VI, because he said that the royal family was best when it was just us four, by which he meant Queen Elizabeth, who became the Queen Mother, and the two princesses.
Well, look, my friend, please stay with us. We've got a shadow minister to talk to right now, and then we'll come back to more thoughts on a slimmed-down royal family. But we're talking about the civil servant Sue Gray now facing criticism this morning for not cooperating in an investigation into talks with Labour about a senior party role with them.
Yes, Keir Starmer says he's confident that Ms Gray has not broken any rules. Let's discuss this all with Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray. Good morning to you, James. Look, this is a bad look. If somebody who is renowned for their inquiries and their investigations is now refusing to cooperate when her own conduct is being questioned legitimately.
No, look, this is a made-up kind of political process by the Conservatives to distract attention from their failures to tackle the cost of living crisis just the day before elections. You know, Sue Gray has cooperated fully with the ACOBA process, and ACOBA is the right body which is responsible for looking into issues relating to this matter. What the Conservatives are talking about is this made-up political process that they've created. And actually, you know, that is distracting from what the real issue here is, which is about the cost of living crisis that is facing people across the country.
Well, the real issue is you've got a civil servant who's regarded as whiter than white. Why can't you just say, look, yeah, whatever it takes, whatever it needs, if I've done something wrong, let's find out if I have or not. Has Keir Starmer done something wrong? I mean, you're all like a nest of vipers there. She's supposed to be policing the government as a civil servant, and her credentials, you see, the thing is, James, her credentials, she was painted to be like an untouchable, someone who was above it all. And now we see she's got her hands in probably just too many pies. It would be quite simple if the woman stood up and said, let me just clarify what's going on here.
But look, I think you've got questions that you're asking, and you know, any questions around this matter are being dealt with by the process which is being run by ACOBA, by the committee which is looking into this. You know, that is the proper process, that is the responsible body for looking into this thoroughly, properly, by the book and so on, and Sue Gray is cooperating fully with them to make sure that that happens. You know, that is the process, so that will answer questions that anyone might have. You know, the point is to make sure that we focus on that ACOBA process rather than let the government distract us by their made-up political process which is happening alongside it.
Okay, and we do understand, obviously, local elections tomorrow and whatever, and I can totally understand why the way you're painting that argument could possibly be true. So I
want to ask just on the question of elections. Of course, we're expecting a general election next year. There is some suggestion that in order to avoid any controversy, actually any involvement of Sue Gray should be deferred until after that. She could not take up the role of Chief of Staff because of this conflict of interest. Do you accept that line of thinking?
Well, look, what I accept is that is a recommendation which ACOBA will make. You know, they have the process, they have the responsibility to look into this. They will make a recommendation.
But you will have a view on whether something's right or wrong.
To make a judgment. No, look, it's not for me to make a judgment call about, you know, what is the right amount of time for Sue Gray to be on what they call gardening leave. You know, there is this accepted, I think, an accepted principle. There is a period of gardening leave, which is where, you know, you don't go and work for Keir Starmer after you work for the government, but that is something which which will be advised on by ACOBA, and you know, I'm not going to advise on that because I think it is a process for ACOBA to look into and to make the recommendations on.
Okay. James, what you can make a judgment call on as the Shadow Financial Secretary, I thought we had windfall taxes. I'm now seeing that there may be loopholes and ways around this, and that is something that you want to highlight. Has Sunak and his government windfall taxed the oil companies, or has he not?
Good question.
So look, we first called for a windfall tax in January last year, and the government were dragged kicking and screaming towards introducing some kind of windfall tax on the oil and gas giants. But they've left massive loopholes in it, and we've been calling on them again and again and again to close those loopholes, to make sure that there is not money left on the table from the windfall profits which oil and gas giants are making. Now, what we said is right now, people are facing a cost of living crisis. When there is that money, those windfall profits, those excess profits of oil and gas giants, we should close the loopholes in the windfall tax, strengthen it, and use that money to help people with the cost of living crisis by freezing council tax this year. That is a fair thing to do during cost of living crisis, and that's a different choice that we would make in comparison to the government.
Yeah, I suppose the government would argue that that would be, anti-business. It would force a lot of business to go into foreign hands. And at the moment, they're already taxing the oil and gas industry at 75%, a huge increase since 2019. I mean, where do you want it to stop? 80%, 90%?
BP's just clocked up $4 billion in profit for the past quarter.
But still, how much have they allowed them to take home?
Well, look, what we said is there are loopholes in the windfall tax. We would have it apply from the beginning of last year. We would make sure that the rate was in line with, for instance, what they have in Norway, and we would remove the investment allowances. Now, the investment allowances are a really big thing, where essentially the oil and gas giants claim a lot of the money back that they would have paid in a windfall tax otherwise. What we're saying is that is not the right way to go about this. As we just heard, there are £4 billion of profits reported by BP in the last quarter in the results they posted yesterday. It's really clear that oil and gas giants are making windfall profits as a result of what's happening in Ukraine. This is not down to ingenuity or innovation on behalf of the oil and gas giants. It's down to what's happening in Ukraine. And it's right that when they're making those windfall profits, we have a windfall tax to help people across the country with the cost of living crisis.
Okay.
James Murray, appreciate your take. James is the Shadow Financial Secretary. Thank you for your time today. Michael Cole, we were talking about a slimmed down royal family beforehand, and you were saying this is the way Prince Charles wants to go. Except, I'll put it this to you, and this is an observation I've had, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that when you go to any royal event around the country, anywhere, any garden party, they turn up anywhere, they cut a ribbon, whatever, the public love to see them, by and large. There will be maybe one protester in the crowd or whatever it happens to be who gets booed. There is a demand, no matter how minor the royal is, there is a demand that someone sanctions the local girl guides or opens the local bridge or whatever it happens to be. And if you have a slimmed down 4 or 6 of them, how are they going to do all of that?
It is terribly important. The contact with the people is vital for the continuation of the monarchy, because it exists, because it is broadly supported by the population, and that is very important. The problem we have, I think, is that in recent days, every royal visit used to be very, very special. I wrote my first royal story as long ago as 1962, believe it or not, and every royal event got widespread coverage. The press office inside the building behind us now are frustrated because major stories happen, royal stories happen, that don't get any coverage at all. So I think it's going to be a question of less is more, and the events that are publicised will be more important.
Michael, appreciate your take.
Yes,
thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Right, stay with us. We're going to be hearing how the government's reacting to that controlled explosion that happened here at the Buckingham Palace last night when we speak to Security Minister Tom Tugendhat next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it. Like, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's a nice crowd of people on this nice sunny day building up. Obviously touristy people, obviously people here for the coronation, just getting in the mood of all the festivities that are going on.
I would encourage people to come down and get close to the media village, because you can wave and see us. We've been smiling and chatting to the public throughout the advert breaks. It's a lovely atmosphere. So anyway.
Well, it is 9:20 now, and we're talking about an announcement made today about a team of investigators, the government are saying, which will turn the table on fraudsters. It's a new action to tackle fraud and to stop scamming.
Yeah, that's right. Often exploiting vulnerable people. Here to tell us more about it all is the Minister of State for Security, Tom Tugendhat. Good morning to you. Listen, this is hugely costly.
Morning, guys. How are
£7
you?
billion a year. This is costing the economy and affecting 1 in 15 of us. We can see the reasons why you want to clamp down on it, but how are you going to do this practically?
Well, look, there are 3 things we're doing. The first is we're blocking the fraud sites. So as you know, there's many sort of scams that are coming to you through text messages and emails, and we're closing them down. We're working with the tech companies. We're making sure that they know their responsibilities and know the consequences if they ignore them. And we're making sure that we stop those sort of cold calls and those spoof text messages that pretend to be from somebody else. That's the first thing. The second thing we're doing is we're making sure there's more ability for the police to pursue fraudsters, and that's where the National Fraud Squad, with 400 new investigators and a new National Fraud Intelligence Unit, comes in. That's a huge development. And the third thing we're doing is we're empowering people. Look, programs like yours are incredibly important in stopping fraud, because you help inform people about the kind of attacks that may come to them, the kind of text messages, the kind of emails that they could get that might convince them to click on a link or to hand over money that they really shouldn't. And so we're working on all three of those areas, and I think all three together are important.
But Tom, only yesterday I got a text message, and honestly, I don't know whether it's from my bank, I don't know whether to click on the link or not.
Scary.
Because everything seems very convincing, and my point is, I think it's admirable if you can do what you're doing, and if this actually works, brilliant. My doubt is, how could it possibly work? How can you ever get ahead of these gangsters?
Eamonn, look, your story just there is exactly why I'm doing this, is exactly why I'm taking fraud so seriously. Because you should not click on that link. Absolutely do not click on that link. First of all, if you want to get in touch with your bank, get in touch with your bank. Don't think that your bank is getting in touch with you. You get in touch with them. If you get a phone call, put the phone down and ring back the number that you know. It'll be on the back of your bank card, it'll be on the bank's website, or it'll be in the phone book if you're if you're a little bit older than some. And so look, use the established routes to get in touch with your bank. Do not click on links like that. Secondly, we're working to make sure we close down these routes. You know, sadly, Eamonn, quite a lot of these scams are coming from abroad, so we're making sure that you cannot spoof. We're working with Ofcom on this to make sure you cannot pretend to be a bank or HMRC or a company and send out text messages pretending to be somebody else. And the next thing we're doing is we're stopping these so-called SIM farms. These are these organisations that can send out hundreds of text messages in a single batch. We're stopping all of that. Now, all of that is to do with blocking, and that's really important. But we also need to inform, and that's why thank you very much for raising that, Eamonn. We shouldn't be embarrassed about this. Sadly, scams and frauds are affecting people. You don't have to be vulnerable, you don't have to be a tech novice. Anybody can be a victim, and sadly, 1 in 15 of us are.
Where's the money coming to fund this new National Fraud Squad of 400 specialist investigators with this intelligence-led approach?
So we've set aside £400 million to deal with economic crime, and I think that's really important. 100 million of that is going into these new National Fraud Squad investigators, and of course we've increased the policing priority to make sure other police forces or police forces around the United Kingdom are focusing on it as well. We're also setting aside £30 million to refresh Action Fraud and make sure it actually does what it should do, which is tracking frauds and making sure that we connect victims with the police and making sure we keep victims up to date.
Tom, as an ex-military man, I just want to echo this through you as well. We had that security crisis last night with the guy throwing the shotgun cartridges into Buckingham Palace, and he's since been arrested. Just a shout out to all the men and women who are keeping us safe and who plan to keep the public safe over the next few days. But it's a heck of a job, it's a heck of a responsibility, supervising hundreds of thousands of people and yet keeping them safe as well. The public surely have a role to help the security forces in this as well, don't they?
Absolutely, and Eamonn, thank you very much for that. I know that officers around the country will have heard that. Look, a lot of the focus is quite rightly where you are on Buckingham Palace, and you know they'll have seen the fantastic bit of policing last night where the police responded incredibly quickly, incredibly appropriately to that incident. But you and I both know that this isn't just about Westminster, it's not just about Windsor. There are events going on in Belfast, all across Northern Ireland. There are events going on in Scotland and all across England and Wales as well, where people are going to be celebrating. Look, I'm going to be at a street party on Sunday with my local community. I'm sure many of us are going to be celebrating in small and big ways across the whole of the United Kingdom. This is a wonderful moment for the whole of the United Kingdom. If you're a royalist, it's a chance to celebrate our new king, and if you're not, well, look, it's a chance to get together with the community and celebrate the UK. So we are working with intelligence agencies and police forces across the country, and I can tell you, Eamonn, this has been months in the planning, and many people are working 24/7 to make sure we deliver what we need to see, which is a safe, a secure moment of national celebration, showcasing Great Britain and Northern Ireland to the whole world.
Absolutely.
Well, good luck to them. Be their eyes and ears. Tom Tugendhat, thank you. Tom's the Minister of State. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yes, we say thank you to him in Westminster, and we say goodbye from us here in Buckingham Palace. But I'm pleased to say we'll be back here live from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning.
And it's a privilege to be here. The sun beautifully. Look at that on the Victoria Monument. just basking. It's like the decoration on top of a beautiful cake.
There you go, and the flag flying at full mast there on Buckingham Palace, and we're told the King and the Queen Consort are just behind the cameras here up in Clarence House, sleeping the night there when they're in the capital, as they always
be up
do.
Now. He's an early
He'll
riser.
be up and about, yes,
He's an early
yes,
riser,
yes,
he is. Rising to all the issues of the day. Bev and Andrew, to the point. They're next. We'll see you in the morning. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely
Right.
stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally